Good evening. We're going to call this meeting to order. It is 5:32, and we'll begin with roll call.
Mr. Blades.
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam. Mr. Heyman.
Present.
Ms. Breeden. Here. We have 4 present. Mr. Bruin is on his way.
Okay, next we'll move to the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Please vote. And I don't know if it's going to go in with Eric Riley. All right, let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Present.
Mr. Heyman.
Present.
Ms. Breeden.
Present.
Hi.
And Mr. Bruin walked in, so we have 5 ayes. Motion carries on the agenda.
Yeah, you played with it there. I thought I'd have it on for you. But...
My apologies, the consent time that got thrown off. Okay, I was just approval of the agenda. We're going into public comment on closed session item, correct? Okay, any public comment on any of the closed session items? Seeing none. Phones? None on the phones? We're going to close public comment. We'll go ahead and recede into closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipate litigation, and we'll see you again at 6 p.m.
For the record, there will be 2 items. One is existing litigation, Finley versus City of Ridgecrest, and the second one is a Barker claim, potential litigation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we'll go ahead and resume out of our closed session and begin our regular session. Can I ask everyone to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Chief? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So,
please join me in prayer. Lord, thank you for giving us this day. Lord, thank you for the freedom we enjoy. Lord, thank you for the leadership which you have given to this city. Lord, I pray for our country. Bless this country. Give the leaders of the country your direction. Lord, pray for our troops who are in harm's way. Lord, I pray for so many families who lost their loved ones. Lord, especially we pray for Jason Patton's family, Lord. Give them your comfort, Lord. Let them have peace of mind, Lord. Be with all of us today, Lord, as we discuss many issues. Lord, let our discussions be in the right direction. Give us your wisdom in the decisions which we take so that all these things are beneficial to our community, Lord. Bless each one of us here. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks. Okay. Next item is attorney report out of closed session. Martin?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members. Council considered 2 items in closed session. There were no reportable actions taken by the council.
Thank you, sir. Next item is public comment of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the city council may take action on an item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Is there any public comment from the floor? He did.
Ronald Porter, Mayor, City Council. I came up today because I've been contacted by people because I've been attending this and asking me, but they're very disappointed in seeing that they keep telling me that the council isn't bringing them, that they're autocrats and they're not trying to bring the public involved in their own local government. And I just want you to know that that's what I'm being told. I see it that way. It's been that way for quite some time. We put things on the agenda when we could have those discussions. We should have public meetings on things that doesn't have to have a council meeting that impact a great number of people and take the people's input on it. We're a very lucky community that we have some very, very intelligent people that can give us answers here. Unfortunately, we don't utilize it. And we need to start utilizing the people and utilizing what's going on. And even if it's just have a meeting, so we have this coming up, an ordinance coming up, we're having this coming up, and just bring it and have a council meeting just to discuss it. Or a public meeting just to discuss it. The people want to be involved, but you have to give them the opportunity. And I don't see that we're doing that and haven't for years. Thank you.
I'd like to respond to that if I may. Mr. Porter, we have significant number of meetings where people are asked, begged, please come and talk to us. If they don't come, it is hardly our responsibility. I think it's important that they understand we want them, we need them, we cannot exist without their input. But to say for years we have not done that, I think is grossly unfair and inappropriate because it doesn't solve solutions when you say, you have never done this or you haven't done it in years. Unfair and inappropriate, in my opinion. I thank you for yours, though.
I thank you for your opinion, but I've been coming to city council for many years. And many times when they have a public comment thing, it's all directed to go in one direction and not truly have public comment or public meetings on it. That's what I've observed over the years. Disagree, agree, it doesn't matter. But I've had numerous people come up to me with the same question, and I just thought it's important that I pass it on. Thank you.
Would you pass along also my comments? Because obviously they're not watching. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Good evening, Mike Neal. Let me just segue off of that just a little way. One thing you never did listen to me about getting people to the public meetings, I suggested a long time ago that you bring food. Never seen that happen. Bring food, you'll get people to come to a meeting. So, each one of you chip in your, $1,000+ a month you get for sitting up here and buy, whatever, just about anything will do, buy crackers or whatever. And you'll see more people show up. I almost guarantee that. Okay. One thing I thought I already brought this up to your public works director, who I found to be an excellent worker and very diligent. But I think the council ought to know about this because you're the ones who kind of got this started. Raceway Communications at this point is working close to the area where I live, and they've been doing the usual dredging and digging stuff, cutting out sidewalks for the meter boxes, so forth and so on. About early last week, Monday of last week, my phone line went out. I have one of you have a landline phone still that I use. Called Frontier. They came a few days later, went and looked around, came back and said, "Oh, Raceway cut our lines. We got 200 lines cut through down there." And he told me where it was. I went and walked down there. Lo and behold, there were no, dig 1-800 markings. That they trenched all along Las Flores and I didn't see a single dig marking down there. So I don't know how they're supposed to know where the other lines were, but obviously they didn't, and they cut those lines. So one thing I'd like to get the feedback on, have somebody tell me, I don't care who, I want to bill Raceway for the discontinuation of my phone service that they caused. And there's probably a lot of other people suffered the same thing. So we want to communicate, get the information out to those people who had their phone lines cut and give them, provide them information on how to make a claim against Raceway to pay for the phone service that they're being disallowed because of Raceway's mess up. And I think they're going to be overseen a lot closer by Mr. Reed after my conversation with him, and maybe this will clear this up. But I want you guys to let you know about it. You want to say something? Stop the clock, please, if he's going to talk. No? Okay.
Did it ever come back, Mike?
Stop the clock, please. Pardon?
Did it ever come back?
Hasn't come back. I've got it marked on my calendar. I need to find a way to send him a bill for the total time my phone service is out. So I don't know how long, the guy couldn't give me a time frame. So who knows how long it'll be out for. But I know for sure this is where Mr. Matthews lived. And his primary line was landline and he used DSL. So if he was still alive and, maybe his son's down there, still using this, he's completely cut off. They're completely cut off. Anybody who's depending on landlines in that area are completely cut off as of last Monday. So it's not good. The next thing is a kind of an announcement for general area interest here. Everybody's probably familiar. If you only watch CNN, maybe you won't know. But we've had the People's Convoy up in Canada going on now for several weeks in response and being encouraged by that. We now we're going to have a People's Convoy in the United States. And from what I know, it hasn't changed in the last few days. It's going to start next week, February 23rd. They're going to start it in Barstow. So if you'd like to get in on it, if you'd like to go cheer them on or whatever, look at the website, thepeoplesconvoy.org. They have a Facebook page referenced on that. Facebook page is the People's Convoy official. And you can get updates on that and find out how to get in on this movement to protest against this fake China virus scam that's been foisted on us. It's still forcing our children into masks. And I was out of town recently, still forcing stores to put up the stupid signs. They wear a mask. They don't do anything before you can come in. All this kind of garbage we have to live in for the last 2 years. We're going to see a big protest, I hope, start right there in Barstow.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Reed, can you give us any additional information?
Good evening, Council. Mr. Neal contacted me Monday or Tuesday? Monday. I spoke with our inspector out in the field. I spoke with Race's subcontractor, HP. HP has hired, we've ran off 2 subcontractors for them now that are doing underground trenching. This is another contractor that's just starting. From my conversation with them, they said that there was utility marks that were called in. Where the line got hit, I don't know the full backstory yet on what happened, but I am looking into it more and more each day. And apparently the marker, the locator who came out and located the line for them, said that he couldn't pick up the signal from a point to a point, and that he had maps that showed it was dead. So that was the lack of response time from Frontier was due to, because when you have a marker, a guy out there who's their safety coordinator for UtiliQuest, who's out with them right now because there's so much going on, that it was dead. So that was the lack of timing for Frontier to get out there to fix things. So that I did find that out. That is what the lack of time has been. And I can absolutely get you the head of construction name and phone number so you can contact them and figure out how to file a claim with them. And we are looking into it more. We did have another utility strike in that area today. A gas main was hit. Gas was notified immediately. Gas was out there within the hour and was working on repairing it. As of the last update I got was at 12 o'clock that PG&E was still working to restore service in that area. And I have not received any other updates after that. Michael still is going to get me some more pictures as to what went on, and I'm going to go out and look tomorrow, and we're going to put together a little report on the utility breaks. I did have a meeting with the overseer from HP yesterday, and the inspector Michael, and I talked to him about the sidewalk repairs and the lack thereof, and the amount of holes that they're opening up. And I basically told him, I said, I don't want to have to do this because I want to see you guys get built out. I want to have everybody start getting internet from another provider. I want people to get these amenities, but I said, I'm not going to sacrifice you guys not doing your repairs. So I said, if I have to, I said, it's not out of my realm. I'll pull all your permits and you can only work on ones that you've already installed until all the sidewalks are caught up. So we're in communication. I'm going to continue to do some research, and I can report back at next council meeting or with an email. And Mr. Neal, I will let you know as soon as I have more information on the subject.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Is there, without trying to point fingers, because that doesn't solve anything unless you can come up with solutions, but are there any solutions we can give them if they're already doing the tracing of where all these lines are? Is there something else they should be doing?
So in my experience, state law requires that you call in utility quests at least 48 hours in advance before you're actually going to put a bucket in the ground. We have gotten so many requests for underground service alert, which is to mark your utilities, that I'm almost wondering if, just in thinking about it right here, right now, if I need to have a conversation with them and maybe they need to start calling stuff in a week or maybe 2 weeks in advance. I don't know if maybe the locators can't keep up. I don't know if that's causing any portion to it, but state law only requires that you call it in 2 days in advance. So technically they are following state law, but that doesn't mean that we can't provide guidance and say, hey, I know my staff is having a tough time keeping up at times, and I'm sure other people's staffs are. I know the water district has one person that does locates. We have one person and myself to help Quinn once in a while when he's doing locates. And I know that SCE, Frontier use an outside third party. And a lot of the times what you see is our infrastructure is very dated, and you have changes that come in and changes that happen. And if those changes and those new maps don't get updated and sent to UtiliQuest, they have old maps and they don't know where the new lines are. And since all of your stuff these days have a tracer wire, but those tracer wires you only induce a signal onto this wire. If those lines cross and the tracer wires touch, that signal will chase the other tracer wire. So it's really an art to be good at what they do and know if it's jumped, know if it's there, and having a good map is the key to them being able to mark accurately. And it's inevitable with how much we're putting in the ground. This is not going to be the last of utilities that get hit. It's part of construction. So it's going to happen. We're just going to try to mitigate it as best as we can. I'll look into and maybe suggest to Dom that we start getting their locates called in sooner, and maybe have the foreman verify that the utility marks are, one, in place, and two, that the utility marker has completed the marks. Because I know a lot of times you've got so many of them, and then if you've got one that gets hit, you're in the middle of marking one, and you have to go run and look at what got hit to figure out. Because you got to remember, it's all private agencies, so they're all trying to cover their butts. So if a line's not marked or it's mismarked, which means it's more than 2 feet one way or another of where that line is, the contractor that's putting the pipe in the ground that's digging is not responsible for that. You're expected as a locator to be able to get within 4 feet roughly, or 2 foot one way or another, of where that line is. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. That's why I can't jump to any conclusions yet. Had some other stuff that came up today, so I didn't get to spend as much time out there to really kind of get a better grasp of what's going on. All I got was the comments from my inspector, who felt that the majority or everything that he had seen had been called in, but I'm going to go do some of my own due diligence and find out and make sure. So
Thank you.
And the sidewalks is the secondary issue that was brought up, but that's just running behind. I'm assuming that I know that we've had this conversation about it, but that's partially, I'll take blame for that. It's partially my fault, because the subcontractors, the two that we ran off, were doing their own concrete replacements, and it was so bad that I think we've only accepted one sidewalk that they've repaired. So they're currently in the process of trying to find somebody local that can do the sidewalk repairs. I told them yesterday, I said, there's quite a few concrete people in this valley that are really, really good. I said, they're all working somewhere else right now. I know it. I said, but even if it's going to cost you a little bit more on your bottom dollar, you will not have any headache. It will just get handled. They've been doing sidewalks for us for a long time. They know our process. They know what we're looking for.
They know that they needed to check slopes and make sure if it's an ADA compliant sidewalk, the panel that I'm putting in has to be ADA compliant. That means my box has to slope with the panel. I can't have a level box in the center because that makes slopes steeper on one side than it does on the other. So they know the ins and outs. So I said, I think you guys it would be very beneficial. So I was kind of herding them towards trying to get somebody here local that knows our regulations, that knows how we want things fixed, that'll know when they need to call somebody and say, hey, how do you want to do this? Versus they'll okay, I can just fix this one. I know exactly how this needs to happen. So
perfectly reasonable. I just want to state that from my concern perspective, as we get deeper into the year, if they haven't gotten that contractor in place and we get towards the heat, and if they haven't started to fill those, we're going to have a mess on our hands with fill asphalt that's just sitting there with kids coming towards summer. They can't take 8 weeks figuring it out.
I set the hook yesterday. So
Cool.
if I don't start to see change here in the immediate future, it's going to be time for me to start playing hardball. So
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing, Mr. Neal. I did make sure and reiterate to my inspector, any hole that is open, I need him to go by at the end of each day and verify that there are cones in place for the one that was missed, because I said that can absolutely not happen. The last thing we need is to have somebody fall in a hole because somebody was in a hurry to go home.
Okay. Any other public comment from the floor? Okay. Is there any public comment on the phones? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Oh, there was? I'm sorry. My apologies. Caller, state your name.
Hi, this is Skip Gorman. And are you receiving me?
We are, Skip. Go ahead.
Thanks. I called to have my say on or ask some questions about all the street and pole activity, especially is taking place over by my shop near the old drive-in movie. Is it one private company that's ripping up all these streets and putting up, by the way, more utility poles? These are center poles, almost as tall as the poles that are already there, but without a cross piece, and with one lonely wire strung from pole to pole. Each pole has been stuck in the ground 5 or 6 feet from an existing pole. Is it the same company, Frontier, doing all this with the trenches and the poles?
Mr. Gorman, this is Travis Reed, Public Works Director. It is the subcontractors for Race Communications. They are installing the temporary poles. As you know, I know you've been around and you're very keen on seeing what's going on, that a lot of the poles, Edison has been replacing a ton of poles in our area. So there's specific criteria anytime you're going to add any kind of weight or a new wire that the California Public Utilities Commission requires that the pole and the loading be looked at before you can add these wires to them. So the poles that you are seeing going in are temporary poles because the existing poles did not meet the wind load criteria or the dead load criteria or serviceability criteria to allow for another wire to go in. So all these are temporary. The ones that are have the single wire on them will be replaced. Eventually the big pole will be replaced and all the wires will then be mounted to that pole, and the temporary pole and the old pole will go away. And the one thing that the city, as the Public Works Director, that I'm going to be very cognizant of and rely a lot on by private property owners that have these poles that are in their backyards because of the utility easements, is to make sure that when they remove these temporary poles, I don't want them just cutting them off and leaving them at ground level. They need to get completely removed.
My friend, thank you for that good data. The extent to which these new poles are, quote, temporary is good news indeed to my ears. I consider we live in such a geographically pretty place, and our little city has its own characteristic of beauty if you take away all these vertical poles, all of them. Poles, vertical poles stuck in the ground, to my way of looking, are an aesthetic blight. And seeing these new poles go up fills me with dread. But you say they're temporary. How temporary? When might they come down?
That is the $1 million question, sir. So we've seen quite a few pole replacements. I know in my time doing utility locates at the water district, we were always getting pole replacements. Edison seems to have a very proactive plan, especially out here where we do have the temperatures and the heat and the sun, and we see the dry rot and the moisture coming out of the poles. But as far as when all of the temporary poles will be gone, I cannot answer that question for you at this time.
My goodness. Okay, it's a push then. Good news, bad news. They just are working right now on Inyo, just south of Graff, and that street's going to be a mess. Some utility worker artist came through right in front of my shop and did a lot of very colorful lines on the asphalt and put colorful little flags in the ground next to the street. I have no idea what to expect, nor do any of the neighbors. Plus, when they're doing a street, their traffic management is informal to sloppy. They simply park their big trucks so they all block the street. And if you could travel a whole block before you get to the site and find out, oh, this street's blocked. Somebody sitting in a white pickup truck will move nothing but their thumb to say, okay, go back to wherever you came. Find another way to get where you're going. That's not what I'm used to as far as traffic control on utility stops. It's embarrassingly sloppy. It needs to change.
That is something that I can address. So that's another good answer for you.
Well, I'm sure the people at 7-Eleven Cement will also have something to say about it. It's much harder to turn around a full cement truck in the middle of the street than it is my truck. Okay, I've had my say. My friend, I usually don't call to complain. Make it a great day.
I will say I think you had very valid complaints.
Thank you, Skip. And thank you, Travis. Are there any other callers on the phone? Okay, seeing no other callers, we'll go ahead and move on from public comment. Next would be council announcements. We'll go and start from right to left. Peggy, anything?
None, thank you.
I have none.
Mine, I'm just going to reiterate for those of you who worked with Jason and all the years that he gave to this community and his service. His funeral services are this Friday at noon at St. Anne's. In lieu of donations or in lieu of flowers, the family has asked for donations to St. Anne's School. Jason was a great man. He was a good father, and it's a sad loss to the city.
Economic Outlook Conference coming up next Thursday, the 24th. So it's at Karamagi Center. So it will be a great information on what's going on in the town as well as in the California state and the country as a whole. So I would encourage everybody to attend the conference. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to arrange another trash pickup day. I will do another one. This next one coming up is going to be the 28th of February. It's awkward because it lands on a Monday, but I'm doing it in conjunction with another group with the Mataringa Museum. So they were kind of the driving force, and I just said, well, we'll throw in where we can. But I just want to let the public know. More to follow. I'll try to get something out on social media. That's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
Did you say where it's going to be?
Oh, no. Well, I didn't yet because, so basically, I guess if we want to take a minute, the group that's coming in to the museum, they're there for the museum, but they also, I guess, quote unquote, professionally go out and clean areas in remote areas. I don't remember the name of the group, and I don't want to call them out. Anyway, the museum said, well, we have a groundskeeper for our area already. If you guys want to clean, they said yes. Well, then we have some desert areas around there that you can go off and do. So they got a hold of me. I said, absolutely, that would be great. And then I will go ahead and at least make it available to the public and let them know. If you want to show up, even though it's a Monday, feel free.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is our consent calendar. All items listed on the consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or the audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the city council concerning the item before action is taken. There is one item on our consent calendar, the proposed action to approve draft minutes of the Ridgecrest City Council regular meeting dated February 2nd, 2022. Does any member of the council wish to have an item pulled? Hearing none, does any member of the public wish to have an item pulled? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
So moved.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
Okay, we are moving on to our discussion action items. We have two today. The first is a resolution of the Ridgecrest City Council approving a purchase and land sale agreement with PVC Plumbing and Mechanical, Paul Lilly, for the southwestern portion comprising approximately 5,200 square feet of the parcel located at 1521 North China Lake Boulevard, identified as APN 419-07316. Mrs. Spurlock.
Good evening, Council. So tonight I have a land sale for you. This property is located at 1521 North China Lake Boulevard. If you recall, the City Council authorized the surplus of this property in April of last year. After that, staff followed the procedure for California law requiring a circulation of a notice of intent to sell. We received no interested offers on that, so we did proceed with listing it to private parties. You see the portion on the map here that's dotted yellow. This portion of the property has been used by PVC Plumbing for many years. And at the time that we went to list it for sale, they offered to purchase this portion of the property. So that portion is about 5,200 square feet. Mr. Lilly has paid for a survey to rewrite what the bounds for the two parcels would be. PVC Plumbing owns the property to the south, so this would just extend their property lines up. So they have offered $25,000 for the purchase of the property. We have deemed that fair market value. The rest of the property is also, we're negotiating with Race to purchase the remainder of that property, but that's not before you tonight. So I hope I'll have that soon. So tonight, this is just a agreement for purchase and sale for $25,000. And the resolution authorizes the city manager to execute the agreement.
Okay. Let's first bring it to council. Are there any council questions?
No questions from me. It seems pretty straightforward.
We've known this is coming.
All right, I've talked to the city manager. I think I've talked to you about it, Heather, already. So, yeah, seems like because you said we're working with Race for them to purchase the other piece of the property. You've worked it out with them to make sure they're okay with.
Yeah, they have no concerns with that. Right now, the way the fencing is on the property anyway, it doesn't include that portion. So when they looked at it, they didn't consider that portion of the property anyway. So,
Mayor, I noticed a couple of things, couple of typos or mistakes. So I just want to make sure we have this purchase agreement.
Okay, we're listening.
What's that?
I'm listening.
Okay. Purchase agreement. So there are two APN numbers listed here, and 17 is not ours. So I don't know why they typed 17 there.
17 is the property that PVC Plumbing and Mechanical owns currently.
Correct.
So what it will do when they purchase this property from us and we record it, it will make this portion, the 5,200, part of APN 17.
It will eliminate APN 16.
Right. If we were not creating a new lot, we're just moving the boundaries of the properties.
Oh, so that will happen afterwards, right?
Right.
But right now we are selling 16.
A portion of 16, correct.
So don't you think that's what it should be stated there?
Which page is it that we're looking at?
First page of the purchase agreement. Vacant land purchase agreement and joint escrow instructions. Item 1B.
Oh, yeah, because it says it's also known as parcel 17. Because I think that the realtor is just trying to clarify that this would make it part of 17 when we record with the deed the legal descriptions for the new property. But I will clarify with Mr. Erickson.
Okay. Since we are clarifying that, and the buyer should be Inc., I think, in the sense PVC Plumbing and Mechanical Inc. It's not just PVC Plumbing and Mechanical.
Okay.
So if you can get those two clarifications, that would be great. So even at the item 1B, the address, I don't know why they put APN number. Address should be 1521 North China Lake Boulevard, right? You see what I'm saying? That's all. So
I don't know that there's a way for them to describe it differently other than in the descriptions and the addendums that's attached, correct?
Right, because what's going to happen is the full legal description that was prepared when he paid for that survey will accompany it, because the APN is not really the legal description or the address. It will be that legal description as part of the property, which will include the new bearings for where the property lines are.
Correct.
So it's kind of it's tricky in the paperwork, but when we record it, we will have the actual legal descriptions that verify what's what.
correct. I mean, my point is we are not selling 17 here.
Correct.
So that's a mistake. And they did not specify the address. They put the APN number where address should be given. It's not a big deal, but so those are the corrections. Probably we should get it done before we sign this agreement.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how they would change that listing a little bit other than to say see addendum. Is that correct? Can't think of another way they're going to get around that parcel number clarification. I mean, because it's specifically saying assessor's parcel number. I mean, other than leave it a blank altogether. Other than saying see attached legal description.
Right. Well, there is ways that they do it. I just am not familiar. Because
Fair enough. As long as we can address it, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
That's fine. Any other council comments? Just for a bit of transparency, again, I just want to reiterate that Mr. Lilly paid for the surveying of the request. He also made the request after the land went into excess property sale. And third, Mr. Lilly had been using the property in this capacity for an extended period of time.
That's correct.
Based on a previous council resolution that never was fulfilled. Is that a good way to put it?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Just want to make sure I clarified those 3 points for purposes of the record. Okay. Let's go ahead and take out to the public. Is there any I'm sorry. I didn't ask if there was any other council comments. My apologies. Okay. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council. Do I have a motion for approval of the resolution as presented with the revisions as requested?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next item is discussion item number 3. Thank you, Heather. is discussion regarding the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Mr. Heyman?
Thank you, Mayor. The Groundwater Authority did meet, and so I will give you just kind of a brief overview of our meeting. So we'll start with item number 9, was the board discussion and action on project priority ranking for DWR Sigma IP grant funding opportunity. So that was approved. It was basically a overview of the prioritization of our projects I'll give you kind of a brief overview of the priority of the projects. Priority number 1 was the interconnection project. Priority 2 was imported water. Third was annual reporting GSP. Fourth was the data gap data collection monitoring program. And 5 was pumping optimization investigation. And so that was approved unanimously by the board. And it has to do with getting applications into Sigma for $7.1 million grant that we're putting in for. So with those projects being the itemized, priority. Item number 10 on the agenda was board review and approval of policy on temporary use. It was determined by the board that we would rely on the board itself and not a formal temporary use policy. So the board will take on issues items that pertain to it and make decisions, based accordingly. And so item number 11 was the board review and approval of the shallow well mitigation policy. So that was presented to the board. We discussed it. The consensus was that was basically approved by the board. There were some additional policy issues that we wanted to have put into it, and so they will add those on. That was, I think, primarily some PAC information that they had come up with, and so that will be put on the consent agenda next meeting and formally approved. And then agenda item number 12 was board review and discussion of the Department of Water Resources approval letter of on the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan. So the board, that was our first discussion of the GSP approval. And final was that was pretty much it. The 13th was the Water Resource Manager's report. So that's all I have to give you at this point in time.
Thank you, sir. So we'll go and open up for council discussion. Peggy, you have anything?
No.
I'm just going to ask one question, and I should know the number off the top of my head, but I apologize. I think I got it mixed up, and I was in a phone call today, and I think I mixed it up. What is the ballpark estimate on the interconnect from AVAC, dollar-wise? The big number. I heard 100. Somebody said 150 to me, and I said that sounded really low.
That was the number I was going to, just throw out there, because it has been just kind of a rough ballpark figure. There has not been a formal.
For some reason, I had 750 in my head, and I went, that just sounds way too high, but I didn't know. So 150 has been the number that's been discussed previously. Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
I did have a couple more comments on our previous meeting. Councilman Blades had brought up a question about the data gaps. And so I did a little more research into that. And so some of the data gaps, I don't know if this was the one that, particular that you were referring to, but there was well monitoring numbers that they were behind on. That was one area that I had picked up on. And basically with COVID and the fact that some of the wells, I believe, are on Navy property, there was some, let's just say, complications to getting some of those numbers. And so they talked about it briefly at the meeting, and that they are on top of that to get those numbers, back on track. But it was also noted too that those well numbers have been monitored and being recorded for a great number of years. So not too big of a thing. The other area of data gaps is like future data gaps, areas that, are looked at as to whether there could be, more information gleaned from certain areas. So like in the up near the Rose Valley area, there was discussion on drilling a couple wells to start monitoring and gleaning information for data from that area of the basin. And so some of it is data gap in data that's hadn't gotten, accrued, and others is new data that we could, that the GA could be looking at that would be of benefit to the GSP and to the GA in general. So hopefully that answers some of that question that you had.
No, it does. I just want to make sure I'm hounding on it. It's something. It's important to everybody. I've watched the meetings, and it's important to every stakeholder. I'm sure, but it's something I don't want to leave out. I want to keep mentioning it because I think we could see, over. When's the GSP got to come back up for review or resubmittal? It's like 3 years or something.
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure things are going to change as time goes on. So
right, and on that prioritization of projects, that was number 3 on that list. The annual reporting on the GSP.
Mm-hmm. I had a quick question for you, and this is I haven't spent as much time on this as you have, and probably haven't spent as much detailed time digging into the returned GSP on what the comments were. But it seems like it was a little bit of a conflict. It probably won't be a conflict once you explain it, but it said the GSP confirms water codes adhered to and is likely to achieve the sustainability goal. But then there was another comment that said something to the effect of basically the reverse of that we see that an issue is we're not sure how sustainability is going to be reached. I'm speaking in generalities, but I'm just wondering if you guys have had any conversations to talk about that disparity. How are we going to reach sustainability, right? We know that we'd like to see imported water. We know that's a ways out, but we got to start chipping away at it.
Yeah, there was just brief discussion over the corrective actions of the from the DWR. I do have those with me tonight. If if the council would like me to read, the corrective actions, or would you like me to do that another time? That's something we could do.
Over to the rest of the council. I'm always interested in this stuff. I had kind of glossed over them, and I just remember at some point seeing, that the GSP confirms that they're within water code. Great, likely to achieve the sustainability goal. Great accolade. That's awesome. And then at some point, wait a minute, we're gonna have issues getting there, and I just want to know what the difference was. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah,
I don't think we have to go over everyone. That's, we don't have to go over every single one of them. And I'm sure you don't have that answer in front of you because you're not sitting the whole GSP in front of you.
No, but I did bring it with me to possibly go over the.
If the rest of the council feels like it, I'm always open for it. That's over to you guys.
I would say that any council member that has a question that's the purpose of this item on the agenda for the discussion.
Okay. It would have been a better use of everybody's time if I would have called in to the GA meeting and asked the question there, right? That would have been a better use of the time. But
yeah, and let me kind of get it in order here first. Okay. So also interesting note too that I'll go ahead and just give me a couple minutes here to go over this. But and we discussed this a little bit at our last meeting, but this just kind of pertains to the approval of our plan, for the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority, and how it compared to other basins out in the state of California. But so there was a total of 21 critically overdrafted basins with GSPs due in January 2020. So DWR has reviewed 42 GSPs that were submitted in January 2020. 34 GSPs were deemed incomplete or deficient. DWR approved only 8 GSPs, including the Indian Wells Valley GA. Only 5 of the 39 GSPs submitted by the chronically overdrafted basins were approved. No GSPs approved in the San Joaquin Valley, and the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority was the only GSP approved in Kern County. So again, that just kind of reiterates the, how successful we were in getting our GSP passed.
Kudos to the staff. That was a lot of work.
Yeah.
A monumental task.
And let's see. So moving along here. Should be coming up right here. Okay, so this will take us to the recommended corrective actions number 1. So it is provide additional information on the required ongoing communication elements required in the GSP's regulations. Describe how the required elements fit into the authority's communication and engagement plan. So staff comments to that were the authority, staff, and PAC will address in the 5-year GSP update, which you had kind of referred to previously. The PAC is currently discussing the communication and engagement plan. And that was one of the things that we did. I'm glad I'm reading through this because it does bring up a couple of the communications and engagement plan that PAC has been working on. They're making great strides in it. I'm pretty excited about it because I think when it comes to public relations, I think it's one of the better things that we have going right now to get data, not data, but just explain to the public and to individuals out about what we're doing, why we're doing it, what's been done, and keep everybody up and educated on it. So the corrective action number 2, investigate the hydraulic conductivity of the vertical and lateral relationships between the 3 hydrogeologic zones within the shallow and deep principal aquifers to improve the understanding of potential migration of impaired water and impacts to water level. And so staff comments were, this is an important task that is recognized by the authority. The authority staff is currently finalizing the basin model, configuration management plan, CMP, and the CMP technical group model TAC that will address these concerns, including addressing data gaps and basin model upgrades. So let's move on to number 3. Recommended corrective action number 3, as the water budget elements and values are updated during GSP implementation, including groundwater pumping allocations and imported water, please clearly explain the revised elements and values. Clearly explain all tabular values, including impacts of imported and recycled water. Revise climate change projections based upon filling of data gaps. Staff comments were updated water budget elements will be included in the 5-year GSP update as necessary. The model CMP process will be used to have the model TAC make recommendations to the authority board on climate change analysis. So in other words, trying to keep up with climate change effects upon the current basin and how that plays into data that we have and projections into the future. So recommended corrective action number 4, update the GSP to include projects and management actions sufficient to eliminate perpetual overdraft in the 20 and 50-year time frame, including contingency plan if projects and management actions, including imported water, fail to produce the anticipated results. So staff comments to corrective action number 4 were DWR's water budget BMP guidance document, December 2018, page 9 states, the GSP water budget requirements are not intended to be a direct measure of groundwater sustainability. Many wells show groundwater levels recovering with the future water budgets presented in the GSP. The water budget can be balanced by using more imported water if needed. However, modeling did not show significant benefits to using more imported water. The only alternative to balance the water budget is to further reduce pumping. The water balance will be reviewed and updated in the 5-year GSP update. And moving on to corrective action number 5. Identify effects caused by groundwater conditions occurring that would produce undesirable results based on significant and unreasonable impacts to applicable sustainability indicators. Additionally, the authority should provide relevant updates in annual reports and 5-year updates to sustainable management criteria based on results from addressing data gaps and any observed impacts due to the implementation of proposed project indicators. Staff comments were authority staff and TAC will determine if undesirable results are occurring regarding GDEs and interconnected surface water and establish sustainable management criteria as applicable. Annual reports currently provide updates on sustainable management criteria. Clarification will be requested from DWR staff. And then corrective action number 6. During GSP, during GSP implementation and before January 31st, 2025, establish sustainable management criteria at all wells the authority intends to designate as representative monitoring locations. Staff comments were authority, staff, and TAC will evaluate performance of sustainable management criteria during the 5-year GSP update and establish sustainable management criteria at representative monitoring wells as necessary. The task is ongoing as data are collected within the IWV. And I believe that is all of the corrective actions. Nope, one more, sorry. So corrective action number 7, update the GSP data management system to reflect complete and correct information to comply with GSP regulations. If management areas are considered by the authority, include rationale. And the staff comments to number 7 was authority staff. Water Resources Manager will clarify DWR's RCA and update existing DMS protocols. The need for management areas will be considered and evaluated with the TAC, and the GSP will be updated with the rationale and evaluation accordingly. Basically, improve and expand. So that was pretty much it on the corrective action. So any questions you might have, like I said, I don't know if I can answer them because it's pretty subtle at this point in time.
Nope.
I think it's important, Scott, that people know that all those were vetted publicly. They are on the website, and the responses are all on the website. So if you didn't understand or appreciate all the work that went into this, that they are there. It's not like anybody tried to hide the shortcomings, and that they are addressed and being addressed.
And I think looking at the big picture of the GSP and the entirety of it, these corrective actions, in my personal point of view, are very manageable. So,
yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and go to the public. Is there any public comment?
Is it working? Okay. Ronald Porter. I have just one question as far as this is really a question, more of a suggestion. As far as monitoring wells, I don't know how they're going to pick them, and I don't even pretend. But the Navy many years ago drilled a bunch of monitoring wells. So they may want to consider using some of those if the Navy's willing so we don't have to pay to drill other wells. They drill a bunch of them across the valley. I couldn't tell you how many.
Yeah, you're right, Mr. Porter. And I think there was a quick mention of that during the meet. This is not my day to day. I'm sorry. During the last Groundwater Authority meeting, there was a quick mention about some of the up towards the north. That's a base. There was allowed access to those wells, and I think that base was allowing monitoring of those. But I think that you guys were discussing whether to drill more so they could see just what the Rose Valley runoff was. It's deemed to be about 30% of our recharge at this time.
Correct.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Porter.
That's fine. That's quite all right.
Yeah, I was just trying to think through it. You're correct. I think as long as we still have access to those, I don't know what the status of that is.
John, once he finishes his comment, I'll be happy to.
I'll talk to Mr. Porter.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
And I have one other suggestion for our question. When you take to the, I'm going to get the area wrong. This should be the southeast part of the valley.
Oh, there's the El Paso area. Is that one?
Well, almost. It's kind of just past San Bernardino County Road. That area over there. Mm-hmm. There's an area that's non-potable water.
Yes.
Okay, but they say that, and I'm just going by old reports, so this couldn't be accurate anymore. It's filtering into the other aquifers.
I know that it's a concern.
But my question is something they look at, and I could be totally off base. But if that particular area would be perfect to go ahead and pump that water, that non-potable, and run it through a desalination unit, and we could power that by solar cells, and it would, if that could be counted as part of our mitigation, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, no, definitely tracking what you're saying. Sorry if I keep talking for you. I just wanted to say that I think at some point, because I read through the GSP, that was at least a suggestion to assist with the valley. It's not considered, at least according to Sigma, not considered new water. So it would be a way for us to, use unusable water. Absolutely.
But they may consider it because it's not potable water now. Who knows? It never hurts to ask.
Sure.
That's all my point is. Because if we can pump there and use solar power for desalination unit, then we can count. Even if they gave us 50%, it'd be worth something. But the other it has two advantages. One is we get water credit, and the other one is it's not running into our other aquifer. Thank you.
Okay. The only thing I could say, Mr. Porter, to that might help with some of that, with part of your answer would be that the chronic lowering of the groundwater table, they are looking at other, all options, where water could possibly come from. But, pumping existing groundwater up still takes water out of the basin. So, it falls under the chronic lowering of groundwater. So, that option has been looked at. But
I'm saying they might, if presented properly, it's going to prevent contamination of the current groundwater. And they may count party. Until you ask, you never know.
Right. No, it's a good question. I just thought that might.
That's all I'm saying. Until you ask, you never know. If they count it, then that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Mr. Porter, when I was on that board, that was discussed. And what was talked about was pulling already contaminated water out of the ground only causes it to rush back in. And you have more non-potable water coming a reverse gradient back into the valley. And that was something that everyone, including the state, addressed, as well as the Navy was concerned about that.
The report and the reason I'm saying it this way is a report that I read about 10 years ago is they weren't concerned about that.
Okay.
I'm just saying what the report I read.
I'm just telling you what was said at that time.
That's a logical thought as well. I'm just saying is they weren't concerned. It was they wanted to, because it's actually flowing into the other aquifer. So it's actually it's from the top flowing down. That way, if they just lowered that, then they wouldn't have the contamination problem. I'm not a hydrologist. I couldn't answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mike Neal again. Let's talk about the communications part of the GA. One important part, communicating with the public, is providing documentation to them in a timely manner, because the meetings are supposed to be an interchange between knowledgeable members of the public, or even not real knowledgeable members of the public, and the board. Well, I'll give you the same thing I gave the GA. First off, last week, here's two numbers to think about: 2 and 223. That means that 2 days before the meeting, the 223 pages of the agenda was let out to the public, and I believe maybe to the board. I don't know if they ever get it quicker than it's made public or not. So that means we had 2 days to read and digest 223 pages of an agenda. On top of which, we got the people that attend that work have to take off work to come a Wednesday morning. Because since the inception of these meetings, people having asked time and time again to have the GA meet at a time when more people can get there has completely been ignored. Never considered. Hardly, I think we discussed, and as I recall, I've been to far too many of these meetings that I'd like to recount. I think brought up one time to talk about briefly, and that's it. So communicating with the public, they could do a lot better job. And they tried to, pipe up and say, oh, we had this problem and that problem. We're doing the best we can. Well, they have a month between meetings to get this stuff out. And if they can't get it out in time for the public to have access to it, to be able to read it without having to rush through it so they don't really understand it all very well, then they ought to just wait till the next meeting to present the stuff. Take things off the agenda if you have to. I said if I was on council and they brought a large agenda item and just dumped it out 2 or 3 days before the meeting, I would move to strike it and bring it on to the next meeting. It's that important, should be that important, that the public can be knowledgeably involved. But this is the standard practice. This has happened many times. And now let's talk about information that's put out, but then core information just isn't there. Last year, they put out the water year report for the GA, and they put out the data for years 2015 to 2020, I believe, 16 to 2020. And they use this long used method for calculating the change in groundwater storage, and they put the numbers out. And if you take them all those 5 years and average them over 5 years, lo and behold, what do you get? A change in a decrease in the groundwater storage of 8,000 acre feet per year. And everybody who looks at that, their eyes kind of bugged out and said, well, what happened to 24,000 acre feet deficit per year, which is what they put in the GSP. Okay? They only took numbers up to 2015 to include in the GSP. What did they say this year? They didn't say. They put the whole report out, except that number was just not there. And then they tried to tell us that, oh, they can't get the readings off the wells and they can't do the calculation. And they tried to blame it, I think the vast part of it, on the Kern County Water Agency. Didn't read like 16 wells or some number like that because, well, blah, blah, blah. They had COVID problems. Well, another member of the public who knows about this better than most GA board members pointed out that the Kern County Water Agency gets dollars off of property tax that we pay to do this as part of their job. So instead of the GA staff telling the Kern County Water Agency, you got to do your job, we want the data. This is important data. We need to provide this number to the public. They just let it slide, which gives them another year to wave their hands and say, oh, we don't know what the change in the groundwater storage is for this last year. Really? Well, then why did they bother and put it in a report? That's like, taking the heart out of the body. That's the main number you want to see in that report. And they just let this situation slide and just didn't report it. Didn't even try to say, well, here's a good estimate based on prior numbers, things that we know, and trends. So, as far as I'm concerned, another big problem in communication when you withhold, you don't come up with and provide really important data that they need to function on. And then, of course, you got the whole thing about charging ahead with this grant, and they want to charge ahead to design with the interconnect to AVEC when there's all these other things on the list they could have applied that money to and use that money for that have to do with getting their whole job done. In fact, getting things that need to be done before they even worry about that interconnect, but they are locked in like a bulldog on a squirrel to get this pipeline in, get money committed to it so that they can say, oh, we can't. Oh, no, we got to do this. We can't. We've already spent money on it. So there you go as far as what the GA is about. They're about getting a pipeline put in just as fast as they can.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Next, any public comment? Any other public comment from the floor? Seeing none, I believe I have a public comment on the phone. Caller, state your name.
Hi, this is Skip Gorman again. Thank you for your patience. Bear with me, please. Early on in this particular item conversation, Mayor Braun, you looked over to Director Heyman and asked very briefly if the AVEC interconnect thing has a swag of around 500 and got a bit of a shrug with a nod, perhaps. And that all shot by so quickly.
Oh, I'm sorry, Skip. Let me just go ahead and reiterate.
I barely got it, and I guarantee nobody else picked up on that.
Okay, my question was, no problem, Skip. I was on a call earlier today talking about the AVEC interconnect, and I believed I had the incorrect number in my head. And in the process of that conversation, I said $750 million as an implementation cost, and I was incorrect. And I was clarifying with Mr. Heyman what the estimate was, and he came back with, no, it's about $150 million is the discussed number. That is far from anything fixed or inflationary or adjusted, or this is just the number that has been used in the purpose of conversational reference to the interconnect, and I had an incorrect number, and that's what I was clarifying with Mr. Heyman.
Yeah. You got more visitors, more listeners, more watchers during the city council meeting on this issue and other water issues than the groundwater authority gets when they meet. So it's important that the barely read in, perhaps a bit naive viewer is just now picking up on some of the numbers associated with an element of groundwater sustainability plan, and that is in response to the last is tough to be old. The water authority at the state level seeking to know, well, in the future, this is in quotes, where do you plan to bring in new water? And the answer has been gravitating towards what you call AVEC. Is that correct? AVEC? And that really means a big pipe from California City down to Ridgecrest. That'll cost a whole bunch of money. You conceded down to $150 million. I'll bet it's double that. And plus, there's the yearly maintenance to be anticipated of around $15 million a year, is what I've heard. There's a bunch of people listening to this probably gasping right now. My God, who in the world in the future can put up with a water bill that may be 10 times what it is right now with all these big numbers? And you slide over this abbreviation, AVIC, which I still don't know what that means. It means a pipeline to California City to Ridgecrest. And when you gave a number 500, was it a mistake, left off the units? That's millions of dollars. You guys talk about transparency, but when you can, you're shy about being altogether. Again, the words fail me. So again, forgive me, please, shaking my finger. Be declarative. Be descriptive, especially when you're talking this issue of the groundwater authority, because people are getting their data here rather than from the groundwater authority's meetings. Sorry for the gig again. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Skip.
Thank you, Skip. So in regards to transparency, it's I think the GA has been very transparent in those numbers. The numbers have been discussed numerous times in the GA meetings. They've been discussed here at this in this council chambers. And you're explaining that we're throwing out numbers, but for you to throw out 10 times increases in the water bill, you don't base that. You have nothing to base that on, and so I find it a little discouraging to hear people come up and throw out numbers like that because you don't know what the actual increase in the cost of water per ratepayer will be. So, but anyway, I disagree with you on the transparency issue.
And I guess, Skip, just to a little bit on the idea of a 10 times bill, I understand your concern, especially when you're hearing the dollars, but let me be clear. I'm talking about those dollars because obviously our focus is on finding every possible resource or avenue to help offset that. And part of my role is to handle and to communicate that on numerous different channels or opportunities. And if I was timid in my words, I apologize. I just wanted to make sure I clarified that I had the correct number in my head for when I go to DC next week. And I will be advocating, obviously, on behalf of this community for some of those needs. And anything else, Skip? You still have time. Let's double check. Nope.
When
Okay.
I go to DC, I'll be happy to. Ready?
Okay, we'll go ahead and close that call. Is there any other callers?
Yes.
Okay, caller, state your name.
Mike Sanat, how are you guys? On the issue of transparency and communications, I've tried now for the last couple meeting cycles to get the staff to post the meeting videos more quickly. December Groundwater Authority was 4 or 5 days after the meeting, I think, and then January was 7 days. And right now, the meeting from last week has still not been posted on the Groundwater Authority website. And I contacted the staff last month and a couple times and sent an email. There's no reason, I don't believe, technically, that these meetings can't be posted on the web at least by the end of the following day. And all I hear is excuses of holidays and
I'm seeing my
problems.
IT guy stand up and getting ready to come in to offer some explanation. So, yeah,
I'm
aren't
sorry?
they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all the videos are posted on the YouTube channel. That's what.
I don't see the video. Right? Why can't I find it?
So Mike, this is Mike Sonat. This is Kyle Blades. So I think I even had trouble one time finding it. So it's not right there on the actual Groundwater Authority site. And if it is, I'm sure it happens at some point. I'm not going to claim like I know. But what I do know is that if you go to YouTube and you go to the City of Ridgecrest, they have a channel. And if you just subscribe to that city of...
that's not an appropriate answer. If I'm a uninformed Valley resident, and I want to see what happened at the meeting, I should be able to go to the Groundwater Authority website and find the meeting minutes as well as the package.
Okay, so Mike, I was trying to answer. You asked me a question. You asked the whole council a question. Where do I find it? So I'm just trying to answer your question. You find it on YouTube.
I know where I'm looking for it, and that's where I should find it. So I guess you're telling me it's somewhere else on the city's website.
It's not on the city website. It'll be on the YouTube. It'll be on the YouTube channel. And I guess at this point we could. I mean, the GA staff.
Yeah, we should not speak for it. Yeah, I say, Mike, let me go and just jump in there for everyone. Mike, I appreciate your concerns. The City of Ridgecrest is a courtesy to this community, puts those videos up the next business day on YouTube, and we try to do that as quickly and as efficiently as possible. If you are looking for it on the GA website and where they are responsible for the publishing, I would encourage you to address the GA directly at their next meeting because we have no control over managing that website.
Okay. This is a problem with the Groundwater Authority. It's not responsible. There's nobody responsible. So I'm going to call the city council and ask Councilman Heyman to try to get the Groundwater Authority to at least respond to the simple request of updating the website and posting the meeting video. And I don't care how they do it. It shouldn't be the city's responsibility. I appreciate that the city's doing this as a courtesy, but the Groundwater Authority uses the city as an excuse for not having it up timely. So if you can get those videos up, and I appreciate it, because I have no idea what happened in that meeting, other than what I'm hearing from Councilman Heyman. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Snott. And so if you would get that question to me, I would be more than happy to take it to the GA and have a discussion as to.
Well, it's not a question. It's just a simple request.
Right. Because I do, at this point in time, I know that they are available. And if we have to look somewhere else.
I'm just asking that the logical place for it to be posted
right.
is on the Groundwater
and maybe
Authority website.
Maybe as simple as a post on there that just says, you could review these meetings at, such and such place.
It's a link. It's simply a link to the YouTube.
Right.
So all they have to do is update their page like they do when they post the meeting minutes or the package in advance of the meeting. I think this is the same thing that Mr. Neal was asking to get this information for the meeting in advance in a reasonable time period before the meeting. And I'm asking for the meeting itself, which is held at 10 o'clock during the week when people are working. I'm asking that the meeting video be posted on the Groundwater Authority's website. It may be available on YouTube. I'll look for it again on the city's website. But I don't have a subscription. I just look for it.
I was just trying to add just to help you out, Mike, because I had this. That's why I was adding the clarification earlier. I had the same issue myself. Sometimes if you just type in the YouTube search or search window, if you just type in IWVGA, it doesn't always come up in the sequence order that it should. I found that the best way to find the videos is just go to the channel, the Rich Crest City channel.
The search term might not be consistent either, so that's the problem.
You're absolutely right.
Absolutely agreed. And Mike, just for the sake of providing some direction, what would you define as timely? And let me just add to the idea that these happen on Wednesday, and the website management. Again, so much of website code management is not it. You just go in there and plug and play, and that falls to their staff. So, just for the sake of a conversation, what do you consider timely?
Well, if the meeting's held at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, I would think by close of business on Thursday. That's a day and a half. I don't know how long it takes to process from YouTube, but it should. I would think it's almost immediate. So as soon as the meeting is over, it's archived on YouTube.
I don't think it's quite.
And so
it's not quite immediate.
It's simple.
Yeah, Mike. There's a little bit of a data processing. There's a process there.
Okay, well that may be so.
Right on YouTube. I was talking about specifically on their website, and we can go around circles.
Okay,
Mike. The bottom line here, Mike, is we appreciate it, and we will, and that we'll convey that to the GA. Correct.
As soon as it's reasonable, it would be a good answer to your question.
Fair enough, sir.
And I think it's reasonable for a day and a half or 2 days, and by Friday. But I think it would be nice if people at least could rely on something consistent and not have to go search for it. So,
okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Do we have any other callers on the phone? Nope. Okay. We'll bring it back to council. Is there any other council comments? Nope. Okay. We'll move on to item number 4. Item number 4 is introduction and first reading of an ordinance of the Ridgecrest City Council, amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code regarding solid waste. Miss Megan. Let's go on. Welcome back.
Thank you. So we're here again today to talk more about the SB 1383 requirements from the state. So this is a first introduction of the ordinance amendments regarding the franchise and solid waste chapters. So as part of the SB 1383 regulations, all jurisdictions must have a mandatory organic waste disposal reduction ordinance in place which mandates that all businesses and residents, as well as multifamily housing, are included in the recycling programs that capture food scraps and landscaping debris, among other organic waste materials. So this builds on the previous Assembly Bill 1826, which went into effect on April 1st, 2016. AB 1826 requires any business generating 2 or more cubic yards of commercial solid waste and multifamily complexes with 5 or more units to recycle organic waste. So this is a current program in place, but right now they're only required to recycle landscape debris. That's just the multifamily complexes. Sorry, I should have made that clear. So in coordination with the city's waste hauler, Waste Management, the city continues the expansion of the existing organics program, and that will be implemented in January 1st of 2022. We did put in the notice of intent to comply, which would give us an extension to roll out that program. And Cal Recycle representatives stated passing an organic waste recycling ordinance by the implementation deadline would demonstrate the city's intent to comply with the law. So, as I mentioned, we did request a delay in the adoption and implementation of the ordinance, which would allow council to take final action on the proposed ordinance at the first meeting in March. So this, like I said, is just the first reading and introduction. So we do need to have the ordinance submitted to Cal Recycle by April 1st of 2022. And Cal Recycle will expect the jurisdictions to focus on compliance monitoring and education in 2022 and 2023, and to start taking enforcement actions against non-compliant entities by January 1st of 2024. So a few of the key requirements that the ordinance outlines is it will require the city to provide a 3-container collection service, including organic recycling and solid waste services to all residents within the city limits. Currently, there's quite a few residents who are already participating in the voluntary collection services, so it would just capture those remaining residents who are currently not participating and require them to start being a member of that contract. So we're also, as I mentioned at the previous meetings, we're working with the local enforcement agency for a jurisdiction-wide collection frequency waiver, which would allow us to implement biweekly collection of solid waste and recycling with the new weekly implementation of the organics collection. So if the city is granted approval to move forward with that, it might have the potential to reduce costs to residents significantly. So that is one of the reasons why we are seeking that approval. And obviously the city can, if it's not successful, can revert back to weekly solid waste collection if needed. Another component that this will require is contamination monitoring and program compliance monitoring and providing education and outreach to violators. Like I said, 2022 and 2023 are going to be primarily focused on education, and enforcement will begin in 2024. Another component of this SB 1383 is a food recovery program that facilitates the commercial edible food generators to partner with food recovery programs. Kern County already has a pretty good system in place, so this would basically just be formalizing that and making sure there's written agreements in place between the CEFG's commercial edible food generators and the recovery organizations. So we'll be working with those organizations directly to help facilitate that process and make sure we're compliant with that aspect of things with SB 1383. And then there's a various amount of record keeping and reporting requirements, including the annual compliance report that will be due April 1st. Yes, the initial compliance report will be due on April 1st of this year, and then annually thereafter. And there's quite a big list of all the different things that we need to keep track of. I won't go through all of it at the moment. So you also have in your packet, Exhibit A is the text amendments to the ordinance itself. So anything underlined denotes additions and strike through denotes deletions. And Solomon, I do know there is a typo on number 4. I noticed it says provisions of his ordinance. So I will make sure that that is corrected. If there's any others, please let me know. That is on the last page under number 4 and towards the end of the sentence, implement provisions of his ordinance. It should say this ordinance. So, yep, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Rob.
Good evening, Council. Rob Hilton,
Let's see if that's working. Rob Hilton with HF&H Consultants. So we presented to you last council meeting on the overview of SB 1383 requirements. I'm going to focus today on what's in this ordinance and what we're covering and how we approach this. So the changes to the code are as minor as we could make them and comply with the state law. We deferred a number of things in this to the arrangements in the franchise agreement or rules published by the city to allow some more flexibility over time as you're implementing this, because we expect that as you implement it, you'll learn as you go. And as you do this education with the businesses and multifamilies, there will be some things that you'll want to adjust. So we put as little into code as we could to allow that flexibility. Also, compared to a number of the ordinances, this is about my 60th, by the way, around the state. Compared to most of the ordinances, the volume of paper here is a lot thinner. They really adjusted as little in the definitions as possible and in the operative provisions. So what we have done is we've added some mandated definitions to the agreement to conform with the new statewide public resources code and how they define things after SB 1383. So the vast majority of the changes you see in here are just installing new definitions and using those appropriately to match the state codes. The big issues are establishing the mandatory service requirement, as Megan indicated, for all generators, subject to certain waivers that are in the code for limited generation or space constrained customers. So there are provisions in there, and it's pretty clear how that would get administered. There are provisions in there for the edible food recovery program. Again, this is as lean as we could get it, but it obligates any qualified food generator, and this is good, healthy food that's fit for human consumption. It's not stuff that they were going to discard, to have a contract basically with an edible food recovery organization. The good news is you have some good countywide programs that are built around the food bank and feeding organizations and faith-based organizations that have feeding missions. So you have a pretty good network here. I don't think this is going to be a huge lift for your businesses, at least in the next 2 years. I think it's really just about making that connection. So we have the mandate in there around that edible food participation. We have provisions in there allowing the city to perform inspections where, in those limited cases where that's necessary. And that's really where you've gotten a report of a violation where you would need to go in and do an inspection. And then some provisions that are mandated by the state around enforcement. But again, we took as light of an approach to that as we could. Rather than misdemeanors and criminal code stuff, we're going with the administrative citation process that's already in your municipal code and pointing to that. So again, this is as required by the state to meet the SB 1383 requirements. And it's sort of the second major item we're going to bring to you. The items last time being the 619 extension, this ordinance, and then at a future date, we'll be bringing the franchise agreement that really ties all the rest of this together. So we're here with any questions that you may have. Okay, I have several, but I want to let other people talk and see if they get cleared up. So, Kyle, you want to be the first on this one?
No, I talked so much the last meeting. I told Solomon I was going to tone it down.
Okay, so we'll
so just
okay.
All right. I probably talked the whole 5 hours.
I just it's organics. Solomon, did you have any questions?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
I mean, these are the questions I got from the public, so it's for the public information. So some are under the impression that this is not applicable to residential at this point, which is wrong, right?
That's correct. It's all generators.
All generators, residential, multifamily, and commercial, starting from January 1st, 2022.
Correct.
And then we did a notification of intent to comply.
Can you go a little bit further into the mic? Perfect.
Into the mic. All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So we have already sent notification of intent to comply to Cal Recycle.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and then how much time will it take for us to get a response about that? Maybe.
So we should be hearing from Cal Recycle, I believe, in March, whether our notice of intent to comply was approved.
Oh.
And there's not much discretion for them in that. They have to grant it, and then the issue will be how they monitor your implementation as you go forward.
Okay.
So we shouldn't have a rejection of that.
Right. My understanding is they could come back and make, maybe not suggestions, I guess, strong suggestions or I guess recommendations or requirements, I should say, for If they don't like what we've suggested as our corrective action plan, they may adjust our timelines or say, you can't do this, you need to do this, or so on. But they should work with us to make sure that we can extend that deadline.
So we'll be implementing this from January 1st, 2023?
Yes, the idea is to use the remainder of this year to focus on education and outreach, give waste management some time to procure all the necessary materials, new bins and things like that, and we can roll everything out smoothly and start implementing in January of 2023.
Oh. So that is applicable for both the 75% of organic waste and also the recovering 20% of the disposable edible food, right? So you'll implement both things simultaneously, or?
Correct. Yes. And in that notice of intent to comply, we had a detailed kind of schedule with timelines of when we plan to come into compliance with specific aspects of the regulations, like including the food recovery and all those little details.
Okay. So let's say Salvation Army is one of the contractors who is taking the edible food and they distribute to some other person. And then, so if they have food poisoning or something like that from the food distributed from Salvation Army, so what is the liability of Salvation Army? Are they liable for anything?
There's a Good Samaritan Donation Act in California that protects donors that are donating in good faith. Obviously, if somebody was intentionally trying to harm someone, they would be liable. But anybody that donates in good faith is protected.
Okay. So, Megan, what would be the cost increase for this? Do you know anything about that?
We don't have that solidified yet. We're in negotiations with Waste Management over the changes in the service rates. But adding another stream of collection, you have two streams now, we need to add a third one, is a significant increase. And so that's why we're looking at this every other week solution to moderate that increase and make it.
So every other week for the recycle and solid waste, and then every week the organic.
Exactly.
So any idea, maybe $5, $10 per month increase, or?
I hesitate to say because we're in negotiations right now. We wouldn't want to lose your good position in that discussion.
Okay.
So when we bring the franchise agreement, I'm sure we can get into some of the more solid numbers. I know I don't want to put my foot in my mouth too early.
Okay. So
yeah, next time.
So for commercial,
it's going to happen.
So for commercial waste, we have tier 1 and tier 2. So we'll be implementing tier 1 for the time being, right?
Correct. And then tier 2 in 2024.
2024. Okay. So we'll start penalizing the residents if they don't implement all these things from 2024 onwards. Okay.
Correct. And not all of, one of the things we did here was we didn't make everything an offense that is punishable by a fine. There are a number of things where there's some discretion to do education instead of fines. Like if you put the wrong thing in the wrong container, right? We aren't going to fine people for that. We're going to educate them about that.
Okay. So going back to commercial organic waste, let's say Ridgecrest Boulevard, there are some businesses which don't have any, most probably will not have any organic waste, but still they should have that container.
So it depends on how much total waste they generate, but there is a de minimis standard in the state regulations, and depending on how much total waste you generate, 20 gallons or 10 gallons of organic waste generation is determined to be de minimis.
Okay.
So if you have a real estate office that maybe has a couple of people that bring in their lunch, they probably don't need to participate. But if you had, say, a workspace with 10 or more people in it, they probably would generate enough from their lunch waste that they would need to have a container. Okay. And they want you to look at each situation sort of one by one, which is why we want some time to implement this. We want to be able to work with
just lunch waste. That would be lunch waste, green waste, anything of that. To be clear, so if you have a commercial business that's got 4 trees on it and bushes and a lawn, the odds are they're producing that 10 gallons, even if they have 4 people working in there.
Yeah.
Because it applies to your green waste as well.
Correct.
But there is a provision that they can haul the tree waste by themselves, right?
Correct. And then that could put them into a de minimis. So if you're moving your landscaping on your own, then so that's why we need to work business by business through the community to assess each individual set of circumstances and does it comply with the regs, which is, why we want some time to launch into this and not just hit everybody with it at once.
So is there any possibility to have a community bin, like 4 or 5 businesses which have?
There is some bin sharing opportunities. There are challenges with that in the state code because at a certain point when you aggregate waste together, you've created a solid waste facility. So there can be sharing in certain situations. We just need to make sure it doesn't trip that threshold to all of a sudden become a waste facility that's receiving things.
So, that's all. I know, Megan, you have been working on this very hard. So, I mean, these are all the questions which I get. So I thought it's better to ask you so that public can have this information.
There's no such thing as a bad question. This is a beast, and it's confusing, a lot of it. One of my first questions when I started doing research on it and when Ron dumped this into my lap was, okay, there's these de minimis waivers, but they are not for residents. And I was just as frustrated as I'm sure a lot of people in the community are. And I called the CalRecycle rep, and I asked, why not? There's going to be so many people who don't have this volume of waste, but with the goal of the program, they're trying to capture that residential food waste and organics. So that's just how the regulations are, unfortunately.
So moving forward, is there any possibility the residents can have the de minimis waiver?
Not under the current regulatory structure. It would take a legislative fix to get to that.
That would be from the
state legislature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Scott? So touching on with what Councilman Roger Rotman was discussing with the self-hauling, can a homeowner continue to do like a self-hauling to the dump and is the dump going to be set up to where you would have your organic currently they have recycle areas out there, but
correct,
is that an option for a person, or are they being mandated to sign up for waste management?
You have to subscribe to weekly service or biweekly service if we can accomplish the waiver. You can also self-haul as a supplement to subscribing to service, but they're mandating everybody has to subscribe to service.
Yeah, self-hauling won't be an opt-out.
But it's not biweekly if it's the organics, right?
Organics
that has to be weekly according
correct.
to health
And that,
code, right?
You're correct. And that biweekly is in a negotiating phase right now. There's not a
correct.
We
We're
don't know
still
that
waiting
for sure
on approval with LEA.
If that's going to be an option. So
correct. We're still working with them to review our proposal.
Because I have been asked that by several constituents of whether or not, because they haul their own trash, they don't have much, they go to the dump, and so
they'll still be able to haul their own trash, but unfortunately the service is going to now be required. It's CalRecycle's the way they phrased it is the city's now having to provide this service. They haven't really said the word mandatory as far as I know, but it's mandatory to be completely honest.
And this is something that the rural jurisdictions have really pushed back on. Unincorporated communities throughout the Sierras that have very low populations are being required to subscribe to service at great cost in some cases. So they're not bending on this for many communities.
Yes, I think CalRecycle did offer some waivers for rural populations and high elevation, I believe it was. But I think, like Rob was saying, they're very selective in who they're giving those waivers, and Ridgecrest wouldn't have applied for any of those.
Population density of 75 people per square mile or less. So, yeah, you guys here, you won't comply. Out in the desert, there might be some swaths. Yeah.
Trona maybe is.
Yeah, exactly.
So
might have that exemption, but
this might be a little premature because I think earlier you stated that you're going to be, undergoing the educational process of, getting the community and everybody, educate on the how and of doing it. But there was some confusion as to the organic materials, and organic meaning leaves, tree limbs, that type of organic paper, which was normally recyclable paper, and then organic waste. I guess this is what I call organic waste. The actual food items, the stuff that contaminates the other organic materials now. And so I've been asked, is that all going into the same receptacle, or
It's a
how do
great
you
question.
separate the two or three, or is there separate, like food items, the true organic, components?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's exactly why the educational phase is as long as it is, because it's going to be complicated. So your paper, something like this printed paper, will continue to go in your blue container. Or your recycling container. It will be a blue container ultimately. So this is not soiled. It's clean. It can be recycled very easily. Now, if I have a napkin that I ate my piece of pizza on, that food soiled paper, as well as the pizza crust, as well as my lawn clippings, are all going to go into that green organics container. And so it is a bit confusing because you're generating quote unquote organic waste, but it goes into different containers depending on what material it is. And so that's what a lot of the education in this year leading up to the launch in 2023 will be instructing folks about what goes where and how to participate correctly.
So in other words, my wife can't put the pizza box in the recycling anymore.
She may be able to, but
no,
yeah.
I'm making the joke of you take the pizza box and obviously it's soaked with grease.
Yep.
And that's why it would go into an organics container.
Yep. My wife is meticulous. She'll tear the top that's greasy and put that in the compost, put the other one in the recycle. So.
And we'll be working with waste management as well to help us assist with this education and outreach. So they're obviously going to have a lot of the education on what needs to go where and can help answer some of those questions.
Yeah. Nick, a lot of the public right now is just a little bit confused.
I understand.
A little concerned.
We've been working on this for a few years, and there are things that we look at each other and go, okay, what did they mean by this? So yeah, we're working through those.
I did want to mention, while we're kind of on the topic of what goes where, we did get permission from the county facilities that we can use compostable bags to collect food scraps. So I know that was a big concern with a lot of people. Oh my God, these bins are going to be disgusting. I'm just going to throw all my food directly in and we're going to use our water to rinse it out. So that was kind of a big deal for us. It's a good thing. It might seem like a little thing, but it should hopefully help keep the odors down, keep the bins cleaner, and make it a little bit easier for everybody to adjust rather than just dumping your food directly in there. So just wanted to make that note as well.
Faye?
I got to say up front, I'm not real excited about this. This doesn't make me pleased with great joy about what's happening, but nonetheless, I don't think we have a whole lot we can say about this when someone in the state says, this is what you'll do. And of course, we could be a romantic, or we could be someone who says, I'm willing to fight this. And it seems like a total waste of dollars because you're not going to win. It's an understanding of this is what we're going to do, and like it or lump it, this is the law. So how do we accommodate all those needs that I understand in the big cities? It's important. It's mandatory. I truly understand it. I understand why you can't say, okay, but you referred to population, and I guess if I want to fight anything, I would say let's make the population different. But that doesn't solve us accommodating what we have to do now. So are you going to go through my garbage can?
Not personally.
No, I don't think any of us are.
I understand that. But when it's dumped, are they going to go through and say, oh, wait a minute. Oh, there's a piece of pizza in here. And it's supposed to go here.
There's going to be monitoring. We're negotiating with Waste Management over exactly how the program will work and what the frequencies of the monitoring will be. But the focus of the monitoring will be educational. And if you as a resident or even as a business put the wrong thing in the wrong container, there's no fine. There's an educational process that will follow that. There's a letter, there's a visit, maybe if you're a business and you need a little bit more help. But as we've talked about this internally and with Waste Management and what was put into the documents, we did not have penalties for things like that.
Okay, if the idea, and you've got to remember, we've got a lot of people who don't like to be told what to do. Mm-hmm. That's why some of them live in this area and hoping that they're not going to be. I hope people will comply because they're required. I hope people will comply because it's needed, even though it's a pain in the neck. And I don't understand how you're going to teach me as a homeowner and me as a business also, how I'm going to comply, because I have not once, I've asked and asked and asked, what am I supposed to do? Don't tell me that I have to take the noodles out of this dish and take the paper out of this dish that may have had some noodle water on it. How do you do all that and still comply in a respectful manner to the people that are going to pick up my garbage? I don't want them having to pick up my noodles, but nonetheless, I understand it. And I guess I'm concerned. Give me some rules that I can read and understand what I'm supposed to do. And I keep saying, what is organic and what isn't? If my landscaper takes my landscaping away, is that my responsibility or is that his responsibility? Because you're going to say, I heard Eric say, you got 4 trees. You're going to use more than a half a gallon, but
So
I don't have 4 trees.
With the landscaping, and Rob, jump in if I'm getting off track. But my understanding is that with our franchise agreement, landscapers are still able to haul their own materials. They don't need to contract with Waste Management for that if they're already backhauling, or the only thing is they need to make sure that they're now disposing of it properly and it's not going into the
Are the landscapers required to self-haul?
They're not required to. They could use the bin that's provided by Waste Management if that's the desire of their customer, or if they go to the Ridgecrest landfill, there will be a separate area for the green material to be placed so it can go to the compost. Okay. To your earlier question about the education, we're very sensitive to how much education needs to be done, and Waste Management's got a really robust educational package around launching programs like this. They've done a fair bit of it, and it's going to be highly visual. It's going to show you, here are the materials you have. Here's your food waste, here's your green waste, here's your food soil paper, here's your recyclables, and it's going to show you where those go. And you'll even see on the lids of their containers, they're going to have graphic images of what goes in it and what doesn't go in it to try and help coach people along.
Talk to me about a business like mine, a relatively small business that has the big recyclable container and then the small other one. How do I make sure that people who aren't respectful of my property throw stuff in there? Are you going to give us locks and bins and things like that too?
There are locking bars for all of the larger bins that are available, and Waste Management has a service and a rate that they can do to lock the bins to prevent them from getting dumped in. So that is an option if that, and we've talked about some areas of town that happens more in. And so as Waste Management, one of the things we're going to be doing is having them staffed up to have folks go out, meet with the businesses directly. Chip's done that in the past. So that team would go out and meet one-on-one with the businesses and assess, what is your specific situation? What are the challenges you're having? What's your waste generation profile? Where should these materials go? And even to the point of helping you set up your interior containers so that it's better off, going into the back of house containers correctly. So it's going to take that consultative one-on-one for businesses, particularly in multifamilies, to get it right. For the residents, we can't go and knock on everybody's door and teach them how to do it. So we really got to rely on the collateral that Waste Management will produce for that.
And this information will be coming out shortly, so I'll be able to know what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, and we'll be rolling it out close to the rollout of the program because we don't want to confuse people and tell them, hey, start doing this when we don't have the system in place. So as they start delivering those new containers and getting that third cart for folks, that's when they'll start really pushing that education so that people can use it as they're receiving it.
Okay, I guess I won't be Don Quixote and try to go out and find people who feel like I do and want to say, wait a minute, this isn't fair for little places that don't bear and have the same responsibilities as a big city.
Yeah, it's tough.
Okay.
Do we know when it comes to the landscapers and them hauling off their the limbs and the rubbish, when it comes to them taking it out to the dump, do we know if there's going to be increased costs put on those haulers? And if so, that's going to be a direct trickle down cost back to the residents of the city, for landscaping.
Good news, bad news on that. The good news is that if you are a residential generator in Kern County, you deliver your things to the dump at no cost, and the landscapers generally participate in that because they're collecting it from your residents. The cost of your land use fee, though, that you pay on your property taxes to the county for that infrastructure just went up. The Board of Supervisors just approved an increase in that fee. So you are paying for that infrastructure. It is being passed on to you, but your landscaper won't be the one to charge you for it. When they go to the landfill and have that material, it'll be for free, as long as it was generated residentially.
I was going to say free may not be the correct.
No dump fee.
No dump fee to them.
But yeah, so you could still, yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so I have a couple questions and some quick clarification. So Peggy, on your point about when I was talking about the trees, I was being very specific to whether or not you qualified for the de minimis waiver.
Yep,
okay, as it's defined in the ordinance. If somebody's self-hauling, they can self-haul, or if they've got somebody taken away, great. It's just how you would qualify for that exemption.
You're just not going to come out and count our trees and say you should.
No.
Yeah.
I think it would be something where they find that your standard trash is constantly in such a condition that then they have to come out and do that education and consultation that says, okay, we have to have a chat. Okay, here's your 20-gallon container. 10 of it is food. That's a problem. And I think that's how I want to make sure that that's explained out in the transparency. We're not going to open your trash can, look through it, fish through it, then say, okay, well, we can take this because it meets our standard. They're going to take the trash, and then as the program rolls out, they're going to work towards education and improvement throughout the process. Now, the best way I could try and explain this for the public in terms of transparency is I wanted to ask, how many of you guys have a chip card in your wallet? Okay? This chip was largely lambasted by financial institutions in 2015. And they said, Europe does it, and that's great, but we don't have to do it. Why do we have to do it? What's the point of us having to do it? Despite the fact that economically, fraud is at its highest level in commercial and consumer history. Okay? The reason why they had us do it is because that helped deter fraud. And now pretty much everyone in the room here most likely has a chip on their card, in every single card in their wallet. That was a nationwide global system implementation. So I want you to think about that in a statewide type of implementation. It's not going to open your trash can and check it. It's going to start the process of, yes, retraining, re-advising, reculturing, re-educating how to divide trash in a way that allows for its composting, breakdown, or disposal of, depending on whether it be recycle, solid waste, or organic. That's what we're really talking about here. It's not pleasant. Nobody wants to do it, and that's what happens is we all get up and we scream, shout, yell. We don't want to do something until we discover that, wait, there was a reason we were doing it, and let's be serious about the reason we're doing it. The more stuff we put in the landfill that we could put through other channels that would be organically either reused or discarded gives our landfill a greater longevity. It's that simple. The more trash you put in, the shorter time you have. The less trash you put in, the longer time you have. To build a new landfill is extraordinarily costly, and we're not doing it today. We're talking about trying to do it 10 years from now. So I want everyone to remember what a tank of gas was 10 years ago, or what a gallon of milk was 10 years ago, or what their house cost was to build 10 years ago, or what the price of their Nintendo game was 10 years ago, and remind themselves that 10 years from now, redoing a landfill, if we don't start to take corrective actions, is only going to be worse. Going back to my chip card, the fraud will only be worse over time. Sir, thank you for your comment. I will allow for public comment, I promise. So one of my points would be that this is a process that we have been told by the state we have to follow. I agree with Peggy. I would rather not be doing it. I would rather not be doing trash organics, but the fact is, we live in the state of California. We are under its jurisdiction, and therefore we'll be moving forward. So let's ask a couple other questions. Let's talk about how this affects county. I understand we're up here talking about the city of Ridgecrest, but everyone out there who doesn't live within the city boundaries is wondering what's going to happen with organics as it relates to county. Can we have an answer to that?
The county is in process negotiating with all of its haulers countywide to implement a similar 3-container system. The county's organic strategy has been on the books for, 6 years now, 2016 or 17. And they intend to roll 3-container out to the entire unincorporated county area, with the exception of those areas that are under 75 people per square mile, where they're going to seek waivers from the state for that service.
Within their jurisdiction.
Correct.
And so therefore, they also would fall under the mandatory requirements, but those mandatory requirements being enforced by
the
county, correct? So I want to be clear for the purposes of citizens is if you live on this side of Mahan, you're on the city. If you're on that side of Mahan, you're on the county. Does that mean on January 1st that you're going to get a barrel the same time the guy on the other side of the street does? I can't answer that. That's for the county. I will be happy to provide you a link to speak with them in regards to the implementation. For us, if you're on this side of the city line at Mahan, yes, we will be going into implementation for them on January 1st, 2024. A couple other quick questions as it relates to
we'll be implementing 2023.
2023, sorry.
Enforcing 2024.
Enforcing 2024. Implement 23. My apologies. No, okay. As it regards to tier 1 and tier 2, just a quick clarification on tier 2, which I understand we won't be implementing until 24. But what is the definition of an on-site food facility as it relates to our hotels?
So, for example, when I stay here at the couple of larger hotels that you have in town, you go downstairs and you get a free breakfast.
That counts as an on-site.
That
food.
would count as an
okay,
on-site
that's
food
what
facility.
My question was whether or not it had to be a paid bill or non-paid bill, or
doesn't matter.
How it defined a food facility. So if we have any of our hotels that have a food facility with greater than 200 rooms, they would then fall under that. And then in regards to the larger other areas in the tier 2, which is why I was asking that definition, is I can't actually see any other local business that would be affected by the tier 2 other than potentially the fair.
Right, because I don't think we have any restaurants in town with 250 or more seats. I think most of them will be under that. All of them will be under
250 seats per day over an entire year.
I don't think
we're not going to get there as far as I can. I mean, they're not. I don't think we have that many places turning that many tables every single day, over a 365-day average. So I just wanted to clarify that as far as the tier 2s, at this time within our community, I don't see any others that meet that definition other than the fairgrounds, and that would be under Section 5.
Correct.
At that time.
How about local education agencies?
That's the question I was going to
have. And they're regulated under a separate avenue. So because they're sort of a state agency and they are not under the jurisdiction of the city, the state will be enforcing with the local education entities. So Saracoso and any of your schools in the public school district. Now, if you had a private school that had a kitchen, that might have to comply.
That would a perfect example would be like a local education would be St. Anne's School is a local education. And that means if that school is then how it's being ran and then may fall into that as a food generator if it meets the other criteria, correct? Or is it automatically if it has an on-site? And again, a perfect example is like, I don't know if Emmanuel does, like the church might have an on-site food. It might fall in that. That would be an example.
Emmanuel also has
Emmanuel. Yeah, and I don't know if St. Anne's has an actual food facility. I guess that'll be
the hospital may be the other one.
100
or more
facility.
100 or more beds, and they probably feed people.
Okay, that's probably accurate. That's great. And all I was doing was just showing that again, this isn't until
it's not
2024. Many. This is. I'm just making sure that you guys are understanding what is going on here. And then just want to go ahead and hit the point. A couple things, which is number one, this is Code 1980A, page 10 of 20. Nothing in this section prohibits the responsible party or generator from reducing discarded materials. So once again, if you want to compost, please compost. We no problem. Make your garden, do as you like. Unfortunately, though, it does not allow you to, therefore, get out of mandatory subscription. Just want to be clear about that sentence. The choice to compost is you are simply choosing to not put it in the barrel and use it on your own. That's perfectly fine. However, it does not exempt the mandatory subscription or the required subscription. I don't like using the word mandatory any more than anybody else does. Number 5 on that same, I see the 14 days or otherwise determined by franchise agreement or city issued waiver. Is this essentially we've already put the language in hoping that we're going to get what we want?
Well, so discarded materials can also include recyclable materials, and your current recycling program is an every other week program.
Okay.
So we cast it very broadly
so that
it either applies just to the recyclables, or if we are granted this waiver, we can apply it to these other
and
materials.
that's why it says or city issued waiver.
So that's why we
Which I just want to clarify
structured
that
it
point.
flexibly.
Perfectly. And then last is again to reiterate for the public, the enforcement of this does not go into effect until 2024. That enforcement is not a defined penalty. That enforcement is an education opportunity. There is the ability for the city to reach the point of taking administrative it's not administrative violation. Am I using the right term? Administrative
citation.
Citation. Thank you very much. That we can at that point. But again, our goal here is not to reach that. Our goal is to educate and provide opportunity for a smooth implementation of that change. And then finally, I just want to reiterate one more time, 92% of our public, 92% of the current population within our city limits has trash subscription.
Correct.
This mandatory or this required subscription will apply to 8% of our population that currently does not have subscription within our city boundaries. As it applies to the city boundaries, or the county areas, I cannot address that. Those county individuals would address that directly to the county. Any other council comments?
One last
Absolutely.
question came to my mind. Suppose Salvation Army is collecting food from, say, McDonald's or somewhere. So can they charge them for the service they are providing?
Yes. And in fact, it's quite common that happens. In order to keep those systems vital, they operate, many of them on an enterprise model. Now, with the faith-based organizations, they tend to operate more on a volunteer model. And so you may have somebody in their station wagon going around and doing a route to collect edible food for free. You might have somebody else in a refrigerated truck that's being paid for the service and all of that.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I do have some further comments, but I wonder if we wanted to take public comment.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
do
do next. So.
But yeah, I have more than a few things to say.
Okay. Well, we're going to bring it back to the council after public comment, but we'll go ahead and move forward with public comment. Is there any public comment from the floor?
Before I get put on the timer, I'd just like to point out, I was put on the timer last time, but the other two participants in the discussion were not. So I hope I don't get discriminated against this time and put on the timer so we can have an actual discussion here. I'm going to use a visual aid here. I'll just give you a little preview before I start. Some of you may have read my email. If you didn't, I'm going to reiterate this facts from the state that were provided in reference to me for people who may be listening. I was told a lot of people are listening tonight. Last week after the meeting, I asked one of your consultants, I think it was one of your compadres that was here, who could not give me the answer to what should have been a simple question and with a simple answer, and that's how much food waste does a residential household generate? So I went to Cal Recycle and I got a kind response, and he referenced me the 2018 statewide waste characterization study, which I was not pointed to by the consultant last week. Facts from that for Kern County are that there are 221,577 single-family households in Kern County, and the total food waste was 47,584 tons for that year. So if you estimate that your waste is going to be maybe half the weight of water, and to calculate this out, you come to 107 gallons a year per household of organics waste. And that's sort of what's called food waste. And they have other wastes. Okay, and they had another called other organics. So if you add that in, you come to 2.7 gallons. And they try to throw textiles in, which you know is carpets and stuff like that, a lot of which probably isn't going into the trash can. And so, and the last one, which basically gets you up to about 3 gallons a week per household. That's about a little over round 2. This is 5, maybe a little over 5. So your organic waste for your house is going to be somewhere between this and this, depending on how many veggies you eat. Well, all this discussion, all we've had up here is just simply, how do we comply? What are the rules? How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you pick your trash out? Which bin do you throw it in? Everything else. Nothing but discussion on how do we comply? How do we comply? Here you sit, and mindlessly, need I say, force every single household, residential household in your town, to subscribe to this service. Spouting off saying, oh, well, already 92% of them already subscribe. Well, maybe when they find out they got to pay 50% more than what we're paying right now, or maybe even 30, just 30, they won't want to subscribe. Well, you know, a partnership like this between the government forcing citizens to subscribe to the services of a private company, that's the classic definition of fascism. So don't complain when I refer to this as fascism in practice in Ridgecrest when you pass this ordinance, which I'm sure you will, because that's what it is, plain and simple. Mr. Morgan got really irate back in 2008 when we called it what it was, when they were trying to force people to subscribe to trash service. He didn't like it, but too bad. It's what it is. Sorry. So if you won't stand up for us, if you won't go to the state and say, we don't want to force our citizens to do this just because you say so, especially when the facts point to it making no sense to pay as much as it's going to cost us to let them come pick up less than 5 gallons of organic waste a week. It's ridiculous on its face, and it's simply nothing but agenda pushing onto people to force us down the green agenda road, and that's it. That's all it is to it. So since you won't fight for us, we're going to get it forced upon us. Don't whine about the complaints that you hear about it, because a lot of people in this town, as you could see all around you after these 2 years of this forced garbage that's been put upon us, they're really sick of being forced to do things they don't want to do. And a lot of them have got to where they're not afraid about complaining about it. So when you get the complaints, just remember, you ask for it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Ronald Porter. First thing I want to talk about is this is an unfunded mandate. And I read the section 1383, and it makes a statement that, yeah, but you can do this because you can have an extra charge or tax for it. Well, if you read section 13D, I believe it is, it doesn't fall under it, and the site that they put in their section doesn't qualify. All this time you're spending on this is something they have to pay us for under the California Constitution. And everyone sitting up there, if they're any kind of person at all, they're going to stand up and say, this has to stop. Because they're not going to quit. And then they try and send you to another place to fix it. But if you want, I'll get your card afterward and I can prove it to you. But these people need to stop. Number 2 is I don't create any organic waste and haven't done for years that would ever went to anywhere other than the landfill. And that was just a few tree limbs. Most of when I trim a tree, I cut it up and give it to someone who burns wood. As far as garbage waste, and I don't create 2 quarts in a month when they have this, and you can't have 2 classes of people, commercial and citizens. One of the things you might want to do when you're looking at this is say, yes, 2 neighbors can. If I'm single and the person next to me is single, why can't we share containers? You could give me 3 containers, and I wouldn't fill a garbage container because I recycle so much. I wouldn't fill it in 2 months. And how can you reach out and say, hey, Ron, I'm going to get in your wallet. Here's $400. Just give it to us. $500. For what? Each one of you took an oath of office. And that oath of office says you're going to protect the liberty and freedom of your constituents. If they can come down and get in my pocket for that kind of money and it's not protecting constituents, go to League of California Cities and say, what's going on here? Are we a free people or are we all under the dictatorship? It's about damn time we stood up and said we had enough. We went through this battle before with this cow recycling, but it used to be called waste management, or not, well, I can't remember the name of it. Waste Management Board. Same thing, and we stopped it. We could do it again. And that was without the city council's help, we stopped it. City council fought us. We can stop this again. Say enough is enough. Why can't I sign a waiver for the city saying, I will comply, and I am complying, and I can give you a monthly show how much I took a truckload of branch limbs out there. As far as food waste, I don't have any. What little bit goes in my mulch pile, and like I said, 2 weeks, I can't even fill a quart container. All those onion scraps and a few things. The other food waste I don't have when I have a garbage disposal is called a dog. But, I mean, I'm all for the environment. I'm not saying we don't need to do something. But when they get to this climate stuff, I don't care what anybody says. I can prove any of you wrong. There is no such thing as man-made climate change. Methane gas isn't doing it, neither is CO2. I prove it, even, and if you don't believe me, all you got to do is read the NOAA report and the NASA report. At the very end, it says only 2%. All I'm saying is, if we want to be Americans, we better damn sure stand up and say, we're going to be Americans. What you don't understand about a republic, and that's why we're not a democracy. We're not mobocracy. We're a republic for a reason. Each and every one of you up there have a primary obligation. We created a republic because of one thing. Our job is to protect the rights of the smallest individual that can't protect them for themselves. When you protect the one individual's rights, they're all protected. If we put it into a massive, then none of them are protected because there's no such thing. Peggy has different needs than I do. The mayor has different needs. The council members each have different needs. We have to protect their rights. And if we're willing to say, okay, fine, we're just going to take all this money and just throw it down the drain, then it needs to stop. It's like me. I says, fine, if you want to, why can't I get my trash bins for once a month? And all they'd have to do is put a yellow sticker on and says, okay, fine, this guy's here. I share right now with a neighbor, or what little bit I have. All the rest of it I take over to the recycling bins. So when I have to pay for a special one that I take over there once every 2 months to sit there, I don't think so. And if they continue with this, I'm going to see if I can't get everyone in this whole city to stop their trash delivery. We can rebel too. And if we have to, that's going to, fine us all. But the city can't do that either. There's no such thing as administrative penalties. It's in violation of the California Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. But I have some questions for you. I know you probably won't. The one that I really want to know about is this requirement that residents do it, is that under a regulation or is that under the statute itself? Because I read the statute and I couldn't find it. Where they gave 2 classes of people, commercial versus citizens. Isn't that under the regulation? I haven't read the regulations yet.
It's in the regulations, not the statute.
Okay. Then that's unconstitutional. Because they can't write law with regulations. With far as public meetings, I think we need to have public meetings so we can discuss this. Every 2 weeks or whatever. Do I have to have a regular trash bin? Why?
It's the requirement of the regulation.
No, it just says we have to have recycling.
No, it requires you to subscribe to a 3-container system, or requires the city to provide a 3-container system.
Well, the city's not going to be providing it.
They will through their contractor.
Then they're violating Prop 218 because they're going to be charging us a franchise fee on it, and and there is no specialty for franchise fees. I'm telling you, this has got all kinds of things wrong with it.
And that's fine, Mr. Porter. I've been leeway with the time. Can you do you have a final question for the consultant?
Well, there's no reason to have, I'm going to go into the time constraint for you as well, just for a reason, so you have to understand this. Under the Brown Act, you can restrict time. That is true. But the spirit and intent of that law is so you can have public conversation. Obviously, there's not a crowd here saying, hey, we need to get this guy down.
No,
I sat and listened to you for over an hour. Now, de minimis. What's de minimis?
Sir, at this time, our speaker is done.
Oh, so are you asking me to leave? If not, I'm going to continue to speak. Because I'm within the law. You ask me to leave, I'll be glad to go. It's about time people stood up and we heard.
Ron, I'm trying to be accommodating.
Are you asking me to leave, yes or no?
Ron, we are trying to provide an open opportunity for public comment. There is city org meetings that happen every single month that organics is discussed. There are city council meetings every single month in which they are discussed. We provide a reasonable amount of time. And in fact, I'm allowing additional time because I'm not trying to not be rude to you.
I know. I'm trying to go through this stuff. You ask so many questions.
Then
I have
please
notes on.
address us with an email and give us all of your questions. And we will
Then they
be
never
happy
get
to
answered.
address them.
Thank you. You're useless. As usual. You people need to stand up and say, we're going to fight the state and we're going to take care of our citizens.
Thank you, sir. Okay. We'll bring is there any other public comment? I'm sorry, I have from the phones as well. Any other public comment from the floor? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the phones? Not on the phones? Okay, we'll bring it back to council. That was fun. Again, I'm trying to be fair to everyone's right to speak, but at a certain point, the back and forth does not help or continue the conversation. Again, any member of the public who has any questions, we will always be more than happy to address them.
And have addressed quite a few of the questions. The last council meeting, we went pretty deep into a lot of the topics, all the details. Megan, thanks for that. And at least, so if we bring this back down to just the bare bones business of the city, the ordinance, I know you guys did a lot of work on that. I appreciate that. Appreciate the consultant being here. That's all good stuff. Good gravy. I think we. Appreciative of your time. Thank you for being here. And Megan, thank you for all the work you did on the ordinance. A few just comments on what we're facing here. I think philosophically, personally, as just one individual of the city of Ridgecrest, I like the idea of organics. I think Mr. Porter mentioned that. There's no reason why most folks probably wouldn't be very pro, splitting things up as they should be. I mean, I think Mr. Gorman even brought up, he was in Germany, right? Things are broken out into more like 5. I think that would be great, right? I may not be the most. I'm trying to be nice with my words here. I may not be the most green person in the world, but I would like to be, is what I'm trying to say. I think I would like to be a lot better at it. Of course, I take the same issue with, as I think that anybody would, when policies are enacted at a state level that seem to be further injuring people of a lower economic class, lower income. And that's what this feels like. So philosophically, I think that's what we're all struggling against, is that we watched a policy. I mean, this is back in 2016. I was looking at the representatives who voted yes and voted no. Of course, I think Shannon Groves voted no. But it doesn't change the facts. And this isn't a Republican or a Democrat issue. This is just misguided policy. So it's disappointing to see. It's disappointing to be a part of. Right? I think I brought it up in the last meeting that it was very sneaky of the state to hand this down to the local municipalities, yet not give us our own discretion to make the rules as they need to apply to our area. Megan brought up a very good point in the last meeting, and that was that, even throughout the state of California, there's various climates all over. Like that's going to affect the, reading, if you read through the bill and you read through the data, you see that probably what's trying to be captured is a lot of the ag. And I think the latest science is that the biggest contributor, at least for the United States, is carbon. Past that's methane. Methane only sticks around, I think, for 12 to so many years. 12 years is last what I read, but the point is, I think that the state was reaching to do something. Hopefully we see some good out of it. And what I wanted to do is to at least impart upon the city is that this can be turned into something good. This not just the city council, but the city staff is working way overtime with waste management to help educate. Yes, this is different. Yes, this is angering, as you see. It's frustrating, of course. Believe it or not, we are all just as frustrated. So we're going to step through it. We're going to try to do it the right way. And hopefully we come out on the other end of this as doing something positive. I would love to see that compost, some of it come back to use in the community garden. I would love to see there be a central location for people who want to put it in their own gardens. We see a lot of people put in gardens, especially during the pandemic. People were looking for something to do with their time. There's no reason why this can't be turned into something good. We also have to keep in mind something I wanted to mention last meeting, but I forgot. When the waste management representative, I think his name's Josh, right? He brought up that there is a certain, when we put our recycling in a can as a service, we take that to. They then sift through it for the recycling. That's people who are employed. So not only is it an employment issue, if you misuse that and you're putting stuff in the recycling that's not supposed to be there, you're just passing off your frustration to somebody else. You're just passing off your anger, your obstinance. You're passing off on somebody else who now has to do the same bad thing. You're not really hurting the system. The state of California isn't going to be like, oh, geez, I guess they're mad. That's not the way it works. What it is it costs more taxes. It costs more money. Prices go up. Then you're not really hurting anybody but ourselves. This isn't to encourage compliance. I think I've stated it in other meetings. I'm not the biggest fan of just complying to every law. I'm not the biggest fan of every law sitting on the books. But they were voted for in 2016, went through the Senate floor, went through the Assembly bill. Here we are facing it. So we comply to these laws as we comply to other laws we may not appreciate. I just wanted to bring it back down around and make sure we were looking at that full picture. But back to the business of the city that we are charged with carrying out, I think this ordinance looks pretty sound, and I appreciate all the hard work you guys have done on it. And so we'll move forward with doing both trying to do a good thing, educating, and I guess enforcement when it comes to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Anybody else with any other comments? I'm just going to have mine. Thank you again for your work on the resolution. I know that you have been working on this for a year. And I know I get up here and here's the way it sounds. It sounds like this is exactly what I want. I personally really wish they would have said, hey, if your community is 90% compliant already, okay, which we are, then why are we fighting over the last 10%? That would be good legislation that allows municipalities. But let's talk about other legislation. SB 9, we lost our local zoning authority. We lost this. We've lost that. I'm not trying to stand up here and say the state legislature is doing a bang-up job of sending a lot of good legislation down to rural areas. But the fact is that as a rural area in California, we are still part of the state of California, and we still have to find solutions to make these work. And that's where I want to end it, is with once again the reminder of this community and the appreciation to HF&H, to City Manager Strand, to Megan. We are trying to be a leader in getting a change to the solid waste pickup. Right now, it is every week. We are the first to have petitioned and to made the effort to make an argument to extend solid waste from 1 week to 2 weeks, and it is on this theory. If this pen is a stream of trash, whether you cut it in 3 ways or not, it is still the same stream of trash. So if I take 1/3 of this pen away and it's being picked up weekly, I have greater capacity in my solid waste that I don't need to pick up every week. I can get it picked up every 2. It's that simple. Take a pie, go home, cut it in thirds, and ask yourself how much you can eat at once, and then you'll see the difference. But we are not sitting on our backsides just rolling over for compliance sake. We stood up and started working on this project a year in advance. We are bringing it to the community a year in advance. We are holding out on enforcement for 2 years. We are making sure that we are doing everything in our power to make this as accommodating and as reasonable as possible for our community. And that is the overall message for the 92% of our community that currently has subscriptions, and for the 8% that does not. I am sorry the state legislature has set this in motion, but I'm not sorry that we have to do the implementation. That's our duty. That's our job. And that is part of our sworn oath. Our sworn oath is to represent the citizens of the city of Ridgecrest in its best interest as a whole. 92% of our residents have subscription service right now. Its best interest is to try and find an adjustment to the solid waste pickup in order to provide them the greatest cost advantage. We're doing that. And therefore, I have no gumption with how we're holding up our end of the bargain up here. So with that, any other comments?
I just want to add that, what we're looking at here tonight is that this is legislation that's already been passed by the state, and the fines that the city would be held to are pretty substantial if we don't abide by this. So it comes down to a pretty simple question at this point, whether we like or dislike this moot point. We've got to, abide by the state laws. So I think that's what it boils down to. And like you said, we're protecting the citizens of Ridgecrest coffers by not putting us into a position that, we accrue a lot of unnecessary penalties and fees. So, things that, I think would be wise for us as the city to, as we enact this and move through the process, is that if we find things that are unreasonable and are not, let's just say, appropriate, we could take that fight back to the state at a later time and voice our concerns and join other cities. And, there's ways to, work toward making this a workable thing.
I think if Cal Recycle sees that the city is, making its best effort, they'll hopefully be willing to sort of work with us if there's, if we need to make any adjustments. I can't speak for them, obviously. But with my conversations with Jeffrey McDaniels, they seem to basically a good faith effort can go a long way.
I know in a lot of ways, I look at California as being progressive and, being ahead of the curve, but in a lot of ways we're not. With the water issues, I don't think we're ahead of the curve. And I know other states that I've lived in years back had very similar trash protocols that they enacted decades ago.
Washington's been one of the more progressive ones in terms of sanitation services. They have a few jurisdictions that I think actually already have the biweekly collection of garbage with the organics implementation. So I think they might be a little bit ahead of the curve in some aspects.
So with that in mind, I just want to make it clear that, it's really a pretty straightforward issue for us tonight.
Okay, any other council comments? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to waive reading in full of an ordinance of the City Council of Ridgecrest, California, amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code regarding solid waste? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second.
Five ayes, motion carries.
Next, do I have a motion to introduce by title only an ordinance of the City Council of Ridgecrest, California, amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code regarding solid waste?
So
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
Thank you both for your time, and we'll see you again in March. Okay, next item on our agenda is committee reports.
For the record,
I'm sorry?
Council meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. That wasn't clear. When I said I'll see you in March, we understand we will be bringing this forward for a second reading. Just want to make sure I said it on YouTube. It's heard. Next item is our committee reports. Two of my committees got canceled because Narissa decided to go off and gallivant, but we'll offer her a compliment in a few minutes. City org, myself and Peggy. I'm going to let everyone guess what we met and talked about at City org. Anybody want to take a guess?
Yeah.
No idea.
It might have been organics. And we might have spent an hour talking about organics. And YouTube land, it's the first Thursday every month right here. We would welcome you. We will welcome your questions. We will welcome your commentary. There is not a 5-minute wait limit. There is nothing but us here willing and ready to hear from you. And we hope you come on by. It's that simple. We talked about organics. We talked about fire. We talked about, that committee has two of the big ones right now, and those two, we are working on a potential, road name change. And, largely we are, again, the city org is acting as a function of the conversational process to these ordinance and actions that are coming forward to the council. And it's our opportunity to provide that feedback to our council members, to our community. And I don't have a whole lot else out of City org other than we would certainly love to see you. And we spent an hour discussing just about everything that was discussed for the previous hour. I don't have no report for Parks and Rec, no reports for Finance, and Economic Development.
Solomon, back me up if I missed anything. I think we mostly talked about the ICSC conference, and then also Megan trying to reach out to the community for franchisees and franchisee education. We're going to Megan and I will both be attending an ICSC conference in Monterey, another one in Vegas. I think that's.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in really quick on the franchisee outreach. We did get one response, so we're going to try and connect her with some more information, and hopefully more people in the community will recognize that as an opportunity that we're trying to get people involved in, if possible. So
awesome.
Yep. I'm just going to stay up here because I think I have RECVD.
You do. There's one committee that's not on here that I just want to state for the record that it met. It has begun its process, which is the Measure V Oversight Committee. It's not listed on here, and because it's not a committee which we sit on, I just want to apply again for the community that Measure V has begun its process, resolving the citizen oversight for fiscal year 2021, and they are meeting at this time. Just want to make sure that was said. And anything else from economic development?
Did I miss anything, Solomon? I don't think so. It was a pretty easy go. We mostly just talked about ICSC to make sure we were all on the same page. Megan's keeping us straight.
Yeah, we did have the map update go out yesterday evening, I believe it was. So Jennifer updated that. I worked with her to do that. And if there's any other businesses that people might see, like, hey, why isn't this on here? We're trying to keep it current and stuff that opened recently. So things that maybe have been open for a while that just relocated or things like that. Maybe we are not trying to include as much, but we're trying to keep it as a resource so people know what's going on. So open to suggestions always.
No, that's great. Thank you for that. The map it's pretty nice. It's pretty. If you're on social media, I mean, I don't know if it's
on the website as well, okay. on the economic development page.
It's pretty cool to be able to go through and look at. So
it's cool also to see everything that we have opened and just
there's a lot going on. Man. It's a lot going on.
Yep.
And we're going to try and update that every couple of months so it stays current.
Okay.
RECVB.
So we did meet today. I apologize. This is going to be kind of a brief summary. I don't have my notes in front of me. I was focused on ordinance. But we did meet today. We noticed there was a slight dip in occupancy in the beginning of January, most likely related to COVID pandemic. So Carrie has been working a lot with her outreach to the Sports Commission, trying to make sure we have tournaments and everything like that set up, off-roading events, and really focusing on increasing the not marketability. I'm having a brain fart. I'm sorry. The visibility, I guess is a good way of putting it, of the organization. So they've seen their social media impressions and reach grow astronomically since they've become part of the California network, California Welcome Center network, the state network. So they're seeing quite a lot of outreach going on right now. They've been focused with the California Welcome Center. Obviously, they've seen some community groups start to utilize those for meetings. So, and trying to make sure that we can connect with our local residents as well, letting them know that the Welcome Center's here and can provide some kind of resources that they might not be aware of. So I think that's really all I have off the top of my head. And I apologize, I don't have my more detailed notes. If there are any questions.
I just wanted to, because I'm going to butcher the acronym, but the CPAC?
CPAC?
The base.
Yes, thank you for
I'm
bringing
going to
that up.
butcher it because I don't know the exact acronym.
Yes.
What is it called again?
I believe it's the CCAP, and I could be.
CCAP?
Like I said, I don't have my
It's
notes.
the base
so
industry day.
It is the industry day.
It's
and
being worked on right now. I just want to make sure that I can convey
Yes.
that
Thank
they
you
are
for
going
bringing
back
that
to an
up.
in-person base industry day, and it's targeted for the end of March, if I'm correct.
Yes, and
That
I can follow up with specific dates and stuff.
I don't know what I'm listening at the same time and hearing an acronym, and I don't know what it exactly
No, thank
stands
you for bringing that up. I did forget to mention that, and that's going to be it's going to be nice that it'll be in person again. So we'll start doing some messaging on that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is other boards, committees, or commissions. Anybody have anything else?
Just upcoming Kern Cog is tomorrow, and then League of California Cities the following day, Friday. I'll be in Antelope Valley for that. Always open to suggestions. Like if you guys have something you want to, especially if you like Peggy and Scott, you guys have a lot more experience than I do. If there's something that I'm not thinking of or not bringing up, especially when it comes to Kern Cog or League of California Cities, let me know. I'm happy to discuss it.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any others? Okay. City manager report.
Filling in for Ron, so I'll just tell you what's going on with us. Since COVID's kind of relaxing, we're in negotiations. They're trying to get us, since we're that good. We're going to play the borough's varsity basketball team as a fundraiser for them and pretty much school them. They don't know what's coming.
Now, exactly who is this day that's going to play
the
them?
The PDs. We'll play them. We'll play anybody. So
Do they have to play in body armor?
no.
That would be a much more entertaining game to watch.
So I guarantee a win, just like like we will. We will win.
Okay.
So with that, we're also going to play Murray, junior high, and we'll win that as well. So it should be a fun time. We hope we pack the gym for them. It's a good fundraiser for them, and it's all in good fun. But we will win.
Can you do us all a favor?
Sure.
Will you make sure Liberty Ambulance is available at the event?
We'll have defibrillators on our backs. So
please.
No, it's
what were the
so
dates?
we're looking at a date right now for the Burroughs game. It's the middle of next month, so we figured we needed to give them some time to practice. And I'm sure the smack talking will occur, especially after this. So that's good. It's all fun.
And this is a
Could I
3-on-5?
ask when the last game who won?
Well, we let Murray win.
I know that.
Yeah, if we lose, we let them win. So that's the way it works.
I knew that. So I just wanted to get it out to the public.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, we actually tried during that last one, and we lost.
Do you have a date? For
Tucker's not that good. We do have a date, but I don't want to say it yet until Coach Hansen verifies it. Yeah. And just with that, it was a great playoff game last night. We didn't win, but very proud of the boys and also the girls on Saturday. They represented well. Thanks. That's it.
Future agenda items. Anybody have any future agenda items for the council?
I don't have anything.
Earlier tonight, our Public Works Director said that he was going to touch base with us update us on with the race and make sure you can hear me, with race and these issues that we're having with utilities and sidewalks, and some of those are fluid and ongoing at the moment. So could we get an update at a future meeting here as to how things are progressing? And do we need to have that on the agenda as an item for discussion, or can Travis just give us an update, or how do we have to?
I made a note of it. We'll figure out the best way to
We'll
do it.
make a note of that. And it'll be 1 or 2.
I know you
Could
got
be
a lot
report
on your plate right now, but it would be nice to see how that is coming along. So,
and with that, I'm going to echo one other one, except it's for a different department, directly one row behind, which is I know we have actually gotten ARP things in place, and they have started to move. And
Nothing.
I'm saying it right. Still ARP.
You're good. No, Kyle and I are just making faces.
Erica's rescue. It's not ARPA, is it? ARPA. It's ARPA. Okay. Well. Okay. ARPA. We have actually started to take some of the ARPA money and actually get things rolling. And one of those is a promise that was made at our Christmas party and our tree lighting, which was to light Pearson's playground. And I'm very happy to say that is complete, or 99% complete. 99% complete. And that means that come this summertime, there is actually going to be an opportunity for kids to have that play area more into the fall. Very happy to see that and to see the ARPA money again now. So I'd love to hear how ARPA projects are proceeding, especially when we get one done, so we can celebrate it. It's something great that we're getting done and something good for the community. And I think that's what we want to hear. No others. Mayor and council comments. Kyle, I'm going to let you be the first one this round.
May I speak real quickly?
Absolutely.
No.
Only because Ron forwarded me something that you had sent him as a future agenda item, and I want to make sure that, yes, sir. The local mandate.
Oh, I haven't talked to other people yet. That's
all right. Just want to make sure we're on the same page as you.
Yeah. So let me just clarify that, since the record heard. We passed a resolution last April in opposition to actions related to SB 9. That same coalition group is putting together an initiative to try and take additional corrective steps towards what SB 9 has done to local zoning authority. And we've been asked to create a resolution. We've been asked. I have not given direction to Ron yet to as far as the calendar item.
Okay.
I don't believe I believe the email is about half written on my desk. Because I want to also have an opportunity to at least speak with another council member, make sure that we're also on the same relative page with that. So
I apologize for bringing it up.
No. I'm just making sure that I explain it because I just want to make sure that it's being discussed. It just hasn't moved forward yet.
Okay.
And I didn't think of it as a future agenda because it'll come out.
Okay.
But good point. So Kyle, you're up.
Yeah, an overall appreciation for the staff. Megan especially has been working really hard on the especially SB 1383. All this went into that, not just the ordinances, but working with Cal Recycle. That was a question that I asked Megan last time. Are you in constant contact with them? And she said, yes. It's never ending. Have you asked them all the questions we're about to? Yes, I've asked all these questions ad nauseum, and it's good to hear. Right? I didn't know if that was a bridge too far, if our staff was going to have that kind of access, and I thought that was great. So again, thank you, Megan, for doing that. Ron probably gets enough accolades, so he doesn't need more thank yous. I think that what we're doing are, especially with SB 1383, what we've seen recently with the fire contracts, we're doing difficult things, and I think that's our job. And it's not always going to be easy up here. And I don't think that anybody elected us to sit up here and do easy things. We're here to do the business of the city. I think we're doing a good job. I think we're doing okay. Right? And I think that I've been pretty proud to work with this council so far. I've learned a lot in the last 2 years. And one of them is when to, remove my emotion from certain topics, especially this one. I think that the concerns, we saw people getting pretty heated over this, and I think those are valid concerns, especially when there's broad sweeping policies that are one size fits all policy from the state of California. And I don't want the public, on the flip side of that, I want the public to think that I just want to blame the state for what's going on. I think that we could all educate this was back in 2016. I didn't pay attention to it happening in 2016. I think that, as citizens, we could all take a more active role in paying attention to what rolls across the floor, making sure we're educating our friends. Elections have consequences. We're seeing it right now. Policies change, and legislation can get changed, but we have to go through the slow process. So this was an overall me thanking you, the council, for this. These things are not always easy. Sometimes it's difficult. And also asking the citizens to work with us, work with the staff. We're going to continue to try to do outreach. We're going to continue to do education. Please give us your comments, your questions. There's no reason why we will address them as best we can. I think we'll have an answer to every single thing that we can be asked. And that's the best that we can ask for. That's our job, right? We're here to represent and be that buffer. So I think with that, it's already been said. I've also like to give a condolences to the Patton family. I think that goes without saying, but he was a good man. Solomon.
Just on the same lines, I want to say that this council as a team is trying to do the best for this community. So that is being recognized by many people. So some have some doubts, but majority of the community recognizes that we are doing whatever we are trying to do is the best for this community. So I just wanted to pass on this comment.
I too would like to make my condolences to the Patton family. That was pretty shocking news, and my thoughts and prayers are with the family. And I agree. We have a really good council. We can't please everybody all the time. I was told if you got 50%, you're doing good. But I think as a whole, this council does great work for the city, and so that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to echo what they've all said, but I'd like to add something else. The Planning Commission is one of the most important committees that bring advice and counsel to this council. And my appointment, Will Jenkins, is leaving the city of Ridgecrest and moving to Hill Air Force Base in Utah on March 4th. So my appointment, obviously, I need to appoint someone else. If you would consider working on the Planning Commission, please get a hold of me. I need to appoint someone. I want to appoint someone who will be good, who will care and will work and do. And I think it's important that they understand what the job of the Planning Commission is. And there is so much information available. So please, he has given me a name. I have not contacted that person, but I would truly appreciate anybody who's interested to please get in touch with me. So thank you.
Thank you, Peg. I will not try to take up too much time this evening, even though I'm an expert at it. Narissa, once again, thank you. I love that you helped me fulfill the first promise I made publicly as a citizen, that I was able to follow through on that. That truly made me happy. Telling you a little quick story just to understand how important it was to me. I took my 7-year-old son and I parked him next to the dark playground and talked to him about what it means to actually do things to try and make your community better. And I was explaining to him that they were putting new lights in so that the kids had a place to play at night. And that they could get more physical activity. And we talked about the water over there and different things. And this is the same kid who I went over to Upjohn Park and played basketball with. And I know that they're getting ready to make the replacements on those roofs and those things. Those parks mean something to our youth and to our families in this community. And our families are growing. It's a fact. We are a growing community right now. I kind of put that in perspective. If you think about it, I got the joy of meeting the manager at Dutch Brothers tomorrow morning. I'm going to be over there TikToking it up with our staff. But just think about this. I mean, we've had Panda, one of the largest openings in its company history. Dutch Brothers is opening. 760 Fitness. Arby's is finally completed. Now, grant you, Arby's should have been done 2 years ago, but that's a whole other story. We have the hotel nearly reaching its completion, which would be another very nice facility for us. We have the apartments under construction. And we have at least 3 to 4 other active projects working through Planning Commission right now. We're growing. And to put that into even more perspective, I got the joy today to go out to the base and participate in not 1, but 2 groundbreaking ceremonies in the same day for projects number 14 and number 15 on our MilCon list. So just think about that. 15 active construction projects on our largest employer in the area. And it was just too cool. You know what they did is they showed us, they talked about what it was, they highlighted it, and then you know what they did more importantly is in the middle of it, they highlighted the people that it meant to. And being out there at P1911, which is their project designation for the range control facility. And they've had Bill Gillette out there who's been with the base for 50 plus years, or services of 50 plus years. And then they had the man who joined them 29 days ago. And they talked about the future and the past of this community. And the future and the past is happening amongst us. Our past has been the secret city. Our past has been those people that built the roots of China Lake. But our future is our families. Our future is the people moving into this community looking for an opportunity to get away from a little bit of the things in California. And we are continuing to fight for those things for this community. We're not going to win all the battles. But the fact is that defiance is a much more individual act, and compromise is much more of a leadership act. And with that, I wish you all a great evening. See you in 2 weeks.
Wow, thought-provoking. Wow.